Hello, and welcome to Select and Start, the podcast about meaningful and memorable video games. I'm your host, Keifer, and every episode I bring on a guest who selects a game that made an impact on their life. I have a lovely guest with me today. He is a writer, librarian, and host of NotACast, the one true reread podcast for A Song of Ice and Fire. It is my honor to introduce Emmett, aka Poor Quentin. Emmett, how are you today?
I'm terrific. So glad to be here. Thanks for having me on.
So glad to have you here. A quick little history lesson here for people who aren't as familiar with this podcast. Emmett is a co-host of, like I said before, NotACast, and I've had his co-host Manu, aka Manuclear Bomb, on for 2 episodes of my show, and I have had your wife,
indeed, partner in crime, superior half, etc.
I've had your wife Chloe on to talk about Final Fantasy VIII. So this was a long time coming at completing this holy trinity. So thank you so much for being on.
Again, so happy to be here. Roommate is what she calls me, which is appropriate.
Right. Roommate, friend of the pod, wife. I mean, they're all
exactly
synonyms.
Friend of the pod is what I like to call her. Yeah. Right.
Wife of the pod. So, what do you like to do and what do you like, Emmett?
What do I like to do and what do I like? There's the line in Zodiac, I like to read, I enjoy books. Those are the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like you said, I'm a librarian. I'm a medical librarian, so I always love helping people solve information problems. That's what I do for a living. That's what tickles my brain. I live in Philadelphia, so I like to have a terrible time. No, I love Philly. Great food town, great drinking town, great sports town. So
go Birds.
Go Birds as always. EAGLES, Eagles. Big movie fan. You can always find me rambling about movies on the podcast or over on my Twitter. I have 2 cats, or they have me, depending on who you ask. And they take up, what does Hank Hill say? All the tender feelings I've kept from my family. That's what they're for.
Yeah, they're healing creatures. So, just because you're a podcast Nepo baby who was grandfathered into the show with your connections to Manu and Chloe, I am just kidding. That's not enough. What the gamers really want is credentials, because they gatekeep more than anybody.
As they should.
Well, I disagree, but we're going to check these credentials anyway. What is your relationship with gaming, Emmett? What got you into it? What has it been like throughout the years? What is your portrait of a gamer?
Very casual, I will admit. I'm not good at anything that requires me to have any particular skill of any kind. Now, I was super into Super Mario as a kid, the most basic of all origin stories, but it's true. I was always a collect-a-thon kid. That's always the games I gravitated to, your Banjo-Kazooies and so on. Like, I'm not super good at fast-paced combat. My thumbs just can't keep up. But if you show me a space and tell me there are 100 things in this space, I start going, oh, I'm going to get all 100 of those things. All those things are mine.
Mm-hmm.
So I would gravitate towards those kind of collecting, jumping around platformers. I played those a lot. So I started playing once the PlayStation 2 came around. I started playing games like Ratchet and Clank, and I was into those for a long time. I was also very much into the Final Fantasy games as a kid. I think those had kind of a sweeping romance that spoke to me as a increasingly emo pre-adolescent and then adolescent.
Mm-hmm.
So those pulled me in. And then later I started drifting back. I played Marvel's Spider-Man pretty aggressively for a while when that first came out. Because again, it was like, oh, Peter has to collect 15 backpacks in this 10 city blocks. I'm like, I'm going to get every one of those backpacks.
Yeah, that's insomnia.
Every time I drift back, it's always something like that. Yeah, exactly. It's a pretty basic, obvious recipe. Yeah. But they hooked me with it from a young age, and I'm like, oh, it's Crash Bandicoot, need to break that box. I'm going to break that box.
Yeah, like Insomniac, they cut their teeth on the Spyro series before going on to Ratchet and Clank.
Also played those obsessively, yeah.
Of course. I miss Spyro. I hope he gets a job one day.
Nah. Much too short. The discrimination is pretty fierce in the dragon world.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. They have houses now. There's a house of the dragon. Maybe Spyro can get like a gig on that. Like maybe just a walk-on role, something, just to like collect the residuals.
Just as a baby, and then they recast adult Spyro as like an actual size dragon, but he gets like 1 episode. It's the best he could hope for.
Yeah. It's about the impressions you make on set.
You got to make friends. You got to play the game. Spyro's no good at politics. That's always his problem.
He doesn't want to network. The whole game is networking. It doesn't matter how good you are. It's how good you are at talking to people.
But no, it's my artistic integrity, says Spyro.
Yeah,
He's never going to make it.
Those PlayStation 2 games, he doesn't have the integrity he thinks he has. Anyway.
No kidding. You're in Sony's pocket, and you can fit in there, you little dragon.
Yeah. You will settle for the Crash Bandicoot crossover, buddy. Yeah, so they cut their teeth on Spyro, and then they abandon him, and then they go on to the Ratchet and Clank series, which they have consistently been putting out because Ratchet knows how to send an email. Ratchet knows how to check in with people. And then, of course, that translates into their take on Spider-Man, which is definitely still like, oh, well, it's an open world game. It's action forward. But of course, like there is still the brainworms of you got to collect things, whether they are pigeons or whatever, right?
Yes, exactly. Yeah, even more fun when you get to hunt down animals. That's even more fun if you're a budding serial killer, Peter Parker.
I mean, the alternate universe where he doesn't get bit by a spider.
Oh god, he gets like nipped by a pigeon, and then he just starts like eating everyone's bread in the park. J. Jonah Jameson was right about him. He's a menace.
Well, yeah, no. In the universe where Gwen gets the spider powers, he becomes the lizard. So he tries.
Right, of course.
He does have the psychological profile of someone who could end up hurting people.
Take that, Peter Parker.
This is canon. So, killers. Let's talk about video games again. This is going to be a 3D platforming forward episode because we're talking about the Sly Cooper series, specifically Sly 2 Band of Thieves. You're talking about these other PlayStation 2 platformers that existed. I mean, you talked about how you're a Mario kid. What are like the definitive platformer games for you?
Yeah, that's, I mean, obviously, like I said, Mario 64 broke my little brain as far as 3D platforming was concerned. Yeah, it's easy to be nostalgic for it, but even just the simple act of entering the levels through paintings was just such a beautiful little touch that I'd always wanted to see in a game. And then I did move on to stuff like Jak and Daxter and Ratchet and Clank, and those occupied a lot of time. Because they knew to just take advantage of the new platform and just extend the lengths of the game and how many levels were available to you, so you could spend way more time than them. You could spend, RPG numbers of hours with them if you really wanted to. But those always, looking back at those games, they also had kind of a I'm ashamed to be a platformer kind of vibe as those series went along, because what they really clearly wanted to be were dumbed down versions of shooters. Like they wanted to be third-person shooter, or even sometimes with the Ratchet and Clanks, they wanted to be first-person shooter games, or just a more modified version of them. And that's still fun. There's nothing wrong with that, but I think there's a try-hard atmosphere to those later games, those later kind of PS2 games that turned me off a bit in retrospect, and that's where I kind of gravitated back towards something like Sly Cooper, which has a kind of more dorky, charming quality that is, definitely, it doesn't appeal quite as much if you want to feel edgy or angsty, or if you're an adolescent coming to these games, as I was briefly in my youth. But I think it ages better because it's not trying to be something it's not.
Right. I think you're subtweeting specifically the Jak series, which would I love the Jak games. Don't at me.
As do I.
Jak and Daxter is the best one.
Agreed.
It's like this mix, right, of how it like is able to be this sort of like technical demonstration of the capabilities of the PlayStation 2 by having an interconnected world with no visible loading times. You're just able to, like, it's the whole game is the level, and it feels like you're just in one seamless world. And even in that era, that feels like it stood out so distinctly from the other games around that time. Like there's like discrete loading times in games like Sly Cooper, for example, right?
True.
Of course, you got to follow the money a little bit, right? So when Jak and Daxter comes out, there is no Grand Theft Auto 3, and then there is a Grand Theft Auto 3, and then suddenly you're booting up Jak 2, and there is no Daxter in the title of the game, and
you're driving around town shooting everyone you can.
Jak gets imprisoned and tortured with dark eco, and he talks now, and he's like, "I'm gonna kill Praxis," and then it's a shooting game. It's like a crisis of identity that we all thought ruled at the time, but now...
That's true. I mean, I was the exact right age for it. They knew their audience, for sure.
That was the perfect game for when you turned 13, right?
Mm-hmm.
It was unfortunate for me because I lived in a good Christian household and I wasn't allowed to play teen-rated games when it came out, so I just felt like I got kicked out of a club I was like an inaugural member of.
It's true. Well, it's just how Jak feels. That's just how they wanted you to feel.
Yeah, but of course, when I did get around to them, I still thought it ruled at the time because I was just 13 later than everybody else.
We're all 13 at some point or another. Some of us never get out of that.
Yeah,
some of us stay 13 to the grave.
I hope I'm older than 13 mentally.
Mentally, I've always been in the 85-90 range, so I think I'm okay.
13 going on 90. with
Exactly. It's the newest sequel. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the May December. Jesus Christ. So Ratchet and Clank, I mean, they get the whole like, we started with guns, buddy. You can't tell us we're doing something different. Like they knew.
That's true. They were cheerfully blowing stuff up from day one.
That's just authentic to them. We like Ratchet. We all love Ratchet. Like we were crude from the start. We had guns from the start. We just had a little guy doing it, so it was a bit more acceptable, right?
The big difference is Ratchet started wearing a shirt after the first one, because the first one is charming and like, low-key enough that Ratchet can get away with just being a furry animal who doesn't have a shirt. Every game after that, he's got like the military uniform or, something to cover up that those furry nips, lest the Christian kids get confused. I understand.
Yeah.
They had to do this.
Because of 9/11, we had Ratchet deadlocked. That's why, he has to like wear power armor to like
pretty
recruit
direct
kids
line.
or something.
It's true.
The U.S. military demands Ratchet wear power armor.
Ratchet Goes to Iraq was really the worst game in that series.
Yeah, I mean, like it was. I can't even think of. I'm not there. I was going to try and come up with like a toilet pun for it.
It's true. Deadlock. That's in there. It is funny when those games got so ambitious. Like you mentioned, Jak 2. One of my favorite villain names in anything is Baron Praxis.
Mm-hmm.
That is just amazing. And that's that sweet spot of pulp taking itself seriously enough that it wraps around to being funny again, which those games do tap into still sometimes. But yeah, Jak 2 has that aggressive Mountain Dew energy, which it hits home. It's a fun, it's ambitious, but that first game, I just think of like tropical islands and the sun going down and the music changing as you walk into a new level. It had that cohesive feeling you were talking about, and there's a sense of beauty and wonder to it that I think they did run the other direction from. And I think they were definitely following the genre. And those games are still a lot of fun. Jak 3 gets really, really big in a way that I enjoy. It's very kind of overambitious and probably bites off more than it can chew, but it kind of commits itself to that world in a way I appreciate. And the Ratchet games are the second and third one are just you can blow up pretty much everything in your path. So I could play those endlessly.
Yeah, and like the thing with like Ratchet and Clank is that it remains the most consistent, and it is the one that remains existing, right? So that just sort of
not a coincidence.
Yeah. Ratchet knows what he's doing. He keeps sending the emails. He's always going to stay employed.
Team player.
Insomniac, they're always going to call the phone and say, "Hey, I know we're doing Spider-Man right now, but we still love you, buddy. You want to do another one?" And he's always going to say yeah, because
he's always available.
Yeah.
He's always on Teams. That's where Ratchet lives. Spyro can't reach the keyboard. Crash Bandicoot, pretty sure he can't speak English. Pretty sure Crash Bandicoot's illiterate.
Yeah.
But Ratchet will answer your emails.
Yeah, no. Jak and Daxter have disappeared.
Yeah, man, I remember playing that racing game when it came out, Jak X. Do we all remember
racing.
That one? That was such a, first of all, I don't know if it was just kind of early adopting, but it was such a glitch-heavy game. But that was also the one where like they were just throwing Queens of the Stone Age all over the place. And I love Queens of the Stone Age, but it was, in the context of that series, it was they were so, again, desperate to be edgy and cool and in your face. And that tone by that point was past its sell-by date, like even for the target audience. So that's where I dropped off.
Look, Naughty Dog's never touching that series again. They tried another game called The Lost Frontier that nobody liked and hardly anybody played. That's just fallen off the map. And it's sad, right? Because there's nostalgia playing a factor into this, right? Like Jak and Daxter was one of the first games I ever played on a PlayStation 2. And I think I think that first game is a masterpiece. And I do think that the sequels have its ups and downs, right?
Mm-hmm.
I do still like Jak 2. I still like Jak 3. It's just sad that like of our boys, right? Because hasn't been a Sly Cooper game in more than a decade now. It's sad that Ratchet's the only one that knows how to play the game.
Yeah, and maybe just it was like a lack of stylistic risk. Like again, you know what a Ratchet and Clank game mostly is going to look and feel and sound and move like. Mm-hmm. They make variations, but you mostly know what you're getting into. Whereas Jak took a hard turn, and like there was a terrible fourth Spyro game which was hugely glitchy. And I remember that when every time he ran into a wall, he would go "ouch" really loudly, which I put up with about 15 seconds of that, and then I turned that game off immediately. So yeah, I mean, there's something to be said for consistency and predictability, and just executing the job, even if that doesn't always sound like the most mysterious or inspiring way to go about your work. It gets the job done.
Insomniac knows what it's doing, and like they know how to play ball with like the PlayStation ecosystem of like, all right, here's the new console. Here's how we're going to demonstrate the power of this new console. They do it for the PlayStation 3 with the new Ratchet trilogy. They do that with like Tools of Destruction. They have like things where it's like they're doing things with the 6-axis controller that no one else would do and no one would want to do. And then, with the PlayStation 5 most recently when they did Rift Apart. I loved Rift Apart. I had a great time with it.
Yeah, that was terrific. Again, that was exactly the game I would have dreamed of as a kid playing Ratchet 2 and 3.
And it doesn't meaningfully change too much from like what Ratchet and Clank was, except it is bigger and you can go faster. And that works. So for some people, that's all they really want is just like expand on the idea and move it forward, right? And then with Naughty Dog, it just felt like after Jak 1 or 2 even, that they were just like, what are we doing? We're just sort of like exploring things that we kind of want to do in this space. And you can see that the way like they just drop Jak and Daxter as soon as they go into the PlayStation 3 and their response to, oh, we have more hardware power. Oh, we can like do bigger things as they move on and do like the Uncharted series, right? They finished the PlayStation 3 era with The Last of Us. They do The Last of Us. They make like one game a decade now. But you best believe that they crunched every single one of their employees to the bone to make it the best looking game on that console. Insomniac, even like in between them doing Ratchet games, it's like, here's Resistance. Remember Resistance? You'll never remember this, but this is going to go really hard for a couple years on the PlayStation 3. Were these like mascot platformers just a way of them to like get a feel for like this technology and make something and explore creative ideas while still being bound by the limitation? Because if so, I mean, that's a testament to like the creativity of limitation and how everything just got sort of samey with the unlimited possibility of the PlayStation 3, where we all just like were just dealing with white guys shooting guns for 6 years straight.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think you can there's a tension I really appreciate playing those PS2 games where they were drunk on the possibilities, but also very aware of how far they could go, how far they could push things visually, how far they could push things in terms of level design, in terms of just complexity of character action. And yeah, I do think they were flexes in ways that I think fit with the kind of again pulpy kind of throwback nature of the stories, the sci-fi paperback stuff going on in Ratchet and Clank, and the way that had a similar sense of humor to something like Futurama or Sly Cooper, with the throwback to Thieves and heists and spy stories and adventure stories. Obviously, those games have been picking up on those kinds of stories since the beginning. But I do think you see with games like this, with that early PS2 flush of using very familiar stories as kind of as your way into flexing your technological muscles. And then, yeah, at that point, then which ones of those survive on their own? Maybe the reason Ratchet lasts is because it wasn't pushing its boundaries too far in terms of aesthetics, so it could survive a jump to a more powerful console.
Right. Like the reason Mario looks the way he does is because that was the way you could make his pixel character stand out on an arcade cabinet or on the Nintendo Entertainment System, right? He has a hat and he has overalls, and those are legible on a pixelated screen. So that's just what he looks like, and that's how he's going to look like forever. And that's just sort of like the guiding ethos of visual design well into the PlayStation 2 era, because if you want to make your character stand out and you're still hampered by technological limitations, but you want to meaningfully explore mechanics, you're going to make like a cool raccoon character. You're going to make a weird little alien creature. You're going to make a weird elf with big, tall, blonde hair. These things stand out and they don't have to be recognizably human, because a human character is going to be uncanny. Let's stretch the premise on a mechanical level and do what we can, like make something cartoony, because cartoony is just going to translate better in this form than realistic. And then when the PlayStation 3's promises, we got it. It's real now, guys. It's real. It's real. It's real. Cool. Are the games fun? Some of them. Infamous was great. I love Infamous.
Yeah, great point about the kind of the push towards photorealism as the technology caught up. And I get why that happens, of course. But so much of what I love about a game like Sly 2 is the cell shading and the way they were building on the first one. And the way that a lot of this looks more to me like something like the Batman, the animated series, than anything else. And it has a sense of kind of appropriate flatness sometimes, but also a layer of depth that the first game doesn't have. And it just really looks beautiful. I love the use of shadows is incredible. The colors still pop. And it embraces that kind of paperback cartoony aesthetic in a way that that works better than if they were trying to be photorealistic in a way that they really couldn't be yet.
Yeah, like it's cool that Nathan Drake can go into the water and then he comes out of the water and his shirt's wet and you can watch his shirt slowly dry off. But like, I would also like a game with like deep mechanics.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
It's what you're there for.
It's he can't fucking double jump though. He can't fucking double jump. This isn't a platform game just because he's climbing. He can't double jump. And it's like, look, I like Uncharted 2 a lot. I like Uncharted 3. I even like Uncharted 4. It's just like, can't fucking double jump. Nathan Drake can't double jump. Cool grappling hook. And it's not like I'm saying platformers are inherently a better game than whatever you want to make. Ultimately, I hope you're making the game that you want to make. But it does feel like when you are owned in some part, or at least being guided by Sony, there are going to be a lot of like, well, we're going to do what the trends seem to be trending toward. It feels like Sucker Punch was really trying to follow that kind of like sense of guidance, but still try and carve their own path with it, right? Because like, okay, we're moving on from Sly Cooper and now we're going to try and do a superhero story, right? And it still feels like a 2009 ass take on superheroes with like the
very true.
What was not I Am Legend, the other Hancock.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, White Hancock, but White Static Shock. There we go.
Mm-hmm.
And I like Infamous, and I like Infamous 2 even more because they have the good sense of giving him a melee weapon, right?
Absolutely.
And it's New Orleans, and I'm a Cajun boy, and I'm going to lean towards that. It's not New Orleans, like just a fake name for New Orleans. Like I know where we fucking are, guys.
We all know what the deal is.
We don't have a fucking trademark on New Orleans.
They're not going to sue.
New Orleans. I know what this is. Anyway. It's cool. Like they're still trying to like find, and like the same thing with like Insomniac. Like they're still trying to do things. Naughty Dog too. Like they all find like their little niche of what they want to do while still like following like the trend of going bigger and more realistic. But it does feel like Astro Bot did feel like this big wake up call for the industry, where I do have some reservations about like how it just feels like a big commercial advertisement for the console itself and the brand. But I still love the mechanical spirit of the thing.
Yeah, I think it was Brian Eno had a quote that like whatever is a signature of your medium that you try to erase, that you are embarrassed by, that's what's going to end up being its most distinct feature.
I have bastardized that quote about 50 times on this show now. Yeah, so
yeah,
there you go.
That's terrific.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean it's true. It holds up, and I think it becomes more true over time as you look back. At previous generations of games, just like it does with previous generations of music or previous generations of movies. There was also just a laid-back quality to the Sly Cooper games that I appreciate. It's a hard niche to operate in, but they're very self-consciously games that know they are not really competing on a financial or attention-getting level with something like Jak 2 or the Ratchet and Clank games. I mean, they're well-known or popular, but not getting quite as much splashy attention, and they were not as formally ambitious games. But almost because of that, they could be laid back and casually funny and just inventive in a way that always just I love about these games, especially the second and third ones. The first one is still fun, but it's very kind of samey. It's even for me, it's a little collection heavy. Like you are constantly, every level is 20 of this and 10 of this and 5 of this, and you do still feel, at some point you feel like you're just walking down a path grabbing stuff. But in the second and third games, the variety of missions is really what makes those games so fun for me. Is in this one, you got to wear a dumb little disguise, and in this one, you got to jump over some rooftops, and you occasionally steal stuff, as is Sly Cooper's day/night job. Yeah. But there's so many like vehicles you get to hang out with and use, and there's a real eagerness and a desire to showcase everything they can do, even if it's humbler than what the genre would become. There's that joy.
Yeah. Sucker Punch, especially compared to like Naughty Dog and Insomniac, they always just felt like the little brother developer. Like
absolutely.
The wait for me, guys. Wait for me.
Exactly. I can come too.
In terms of like their release schedule and their level of experience relative to Naughty Dog and Insomniac, who had full trilogies done on the PlayStation 1 before they would even go on to the PlayStation 2. Sucker Punch had one game. It was called Rocket Robot on Wheels on the Nintendo 64.
I forgot that existed.
It didn't do very well at the time, but the people who played it were like, hey, we like that. It was the other Brian Eno quote about how the Velvet Underground sold like 10,000 copies, but everybody bought a guitar, right?
Exactly.
The point is Brian Eno gets a lot of play on this podcast.
As he should.
He's got some bangers. But yeah, Rocket Robot on Wheels, right? That was it. And then Sly Cooper. One game and then boom, Sly Cooper. Wait for me, guys. Wait for me. Wait for me. And like tonally too, their games just had like that more little brother quality of like, it feels like the hand-me-down level of, and not in a derogatory way, right? I say this as somebody who was a little brother with a ton of hand-me-downs from my much older siblings. You find yourself in what other people did. As a human being, everyone does. And what they were doing was like, all right, we're doing Crash Bandicoot, but it is a PlayStation 2 game, and we don't have a lot of experience, but we can tell a story with this. We can give characters around that. And we can try and find our own identity through what's been built before us. And then Sly 2 is able to really take that foundation and run away with it.
Yeah, I think that's exactly the structure there. The first game is transitional, it's tentative. You can see they're feeling their way out through the mechanics. You know, all the Sly games are very they're not difficult at all. They're kid level, kid friendly in terms of difficulty. But the first one is very, very basic. You can speed through that pretty quickly.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's really, really charming. I just, I love the little animal gang of thieves. Not just that, but orphan animal gang of thieves.
Mm-hmm.
Sly Cooper and his little nerd friend Bentley the Turtle, who my wife Chloe, friend of the pod, hates. Yeah. Hates with a passion. Hates Bentley. Just muttering under her breath about what a nerd he is, and then I look in the mirror and go, "Uh-oh, I'm in trouble."
Bentley's my friend, and I love him.
I think Bentley's beautiful, but not everyone can appreciate. No accounting for taste. Yeah, and then Marie, the big pink hippo. Perfect little gang of personalities to bounce off each other. Great little like low stakes world of distinct villains who all have like 2 or 3 traits, which is something I always love in the Sly Cooper games. Is like you can't just be a pirate villain. You also have to be a pirate who was a fallen nobleman who's really into creating new technology, and you live on an island with a fog machine. Like every villain is overloaded with personality, each with their own distinct parts of the world that you get to travel to. And then the build up to the villain of the first one, my beloved Clockwork, the giant robotic owl with like this nightmare flinty voice who lives in a volcano in Russia, who has it in for Sly Cooper's family. So the whole backstory of those games is Sly Cooper comes from the family Cooper, raccoons who have been master thieves all down through the centuries. There were ninja Coopers and cowboy Coopers, and they're probably on the moon. Every genre you can think of, there was a Cooper who was doing thief stuff, and passing down the traditions. And then Sly's parents get killed by the evil owl Clockwork and his gang, and then Sly ends up an orphan, forms his own gang, goes after the bad guy, shoots down the owl, which leads into the bonkers premise of the second game, which I absolutely love, where the immortal evil mechanical owl's body has been recovered and cut into parts. And a new master criminal is using each one of the parts for their nefarious schemes. Like someone's using the tail feathers as like to print money, like as just like perfect plates. You can just print counterfeit money. Yeah. And someone else is using the eyes to hypnotize people. And another villain is using like the lungs and the stomach to power a train. Yeah. Like it's so kind of oddly grisly that the game structure of Sly 2 is you are going around collecting body parts, the body parts of your nemesis. Like that is... I don't know what 11th hour writing session came up with that idea, but it's beautiful.
No, it's great because it's like the second game does feel like, all right, let's deconstruct this a little bit and like
literally,
yeah, because it's playing with it, right? I mean, I think the thing you can feel with Sly 1, and it does feel like the PlayStation 2 version of a PlayStation 1 game.
That is a good way of putting it. Yep.
But it's a good execution of that, and the thing that you can tell more than anything is like you could feel like they spent about as much time as they did thinking about the story in this world and like the characters. Like they had fun doing that, and they were just sort of building the game around it. I can't attest that that's what they were doing because I wasn't in the room, but that's what it feels like. It's like it
feels like that. Yeah,
that's definitely what people who are like less instituted into like video games would do. It's not about the mechanical, like how do we like build a game around this mechanic. It's more like how do we build a game around these guys we like and we want to show the world. And with the second game, it's like, okay, we like these characters. I feel like we have like a good idea of what these characters are. And we made a game to like explore that. Now, what can we like do to cultivate like a tone, an atmosphere, a world, and like translate that into a game? And it really, really works. And it's like interesting to just sort of see like how that gets like built into like their design philosophy moving forward, right? And that whole like, wait for me, guys, I'm the little brother of this like little trio of like Sony properties. kind of sticks with them through the generations. Less so now because it takes everybody fucking forever to make a video game. But like, you know, Infamous comes out in 2009. It was their first game after Sly 3 in 2005. By that point, Naughty Dog has already had Uncharted 1. Uncharted 2 is coming out in 2009. And then Insomniac's like, Ratchet, Resistance, Ratchet, Resistance, Ratchet. It's like they're just like doing windmill dunks of productivity around them. And it's like, hey guys, Infamous 1. Whoa. And it's really cool. And it's not to say like Infamous is like this like standout masterpiece, but it does feel like they're just spending a lot of time like going like, okay, how do we integrate these ideas into this game? Okay, that was pretty good. Now let's really refine that in the second game.
Often little brothers are funnier, and often they are also lazier. No offense to your people. No, I'm kidding. But no, it's true. Like that kind of scrappy energy that they brought to the table with the first one, which is more kind of overall charming than it is gripping. You can see them really expanding on it in the second one, especially in terms of just trying out kind of wild tone shifts and different kind of influences for the setting and for the types of missions that our characters were going on. Like it starts very kind of traditionally and classically in Paris, where the gang lives, and it's, you know, romantic city, and you're carrying out little heists. But then they build through a couple of India-based episodes into this big twist that happens midway through, where you're stuck with Bentley for a little bit after Sly and Murray get kidnapped by some bad guys, and you're stuck with like the least powerful, most annoying character for a little bit on his own as he goes to Prague. Which is that's one of my favorite parts of this game, is the atmosphere, the tone, the look of the Prague sections is so beautiful and gothic and horror influenced and genuinely spooky. And you're stuck in that with poor little Bentley with his glasses and Jerry Lewis voice for a little bit. So that's just taking you in different directions story-wise, much more so than the first one even attempted to. And definitely grounding that more in a mechanical understanding, because leaving Bentley on his own is fun and wild in terms of story terms, but it also means you have to think about, okay, so how are we going to design this level so at first it's navigable for Bentley? Eventually it will be navigable for Sly, who can climb and jump and has a paraglider and stuff. But now they set themselves this challenge in this game of, we now have made Bentley and Murray playable characters, and they are not going to be able to access everything Sly can access, but we need them to be able to access enough of this level so it still feels fun playing as them. They set themselves that challenge, and I think overall they lived up to it.
Yeah, like, here's the idea. Here's why it would be like interesting from a narrative standpoint to explore that. Now we actually have to build that. I like it. I find it really endearing. That's probably why I found it so like interesting as the guy who's playing these games, because I got ESRB'd out of playing the Jak games. It's like you're there because the gameplay is fun and varied, but you're staying there because these characters and their dynamics are fun and interesting. It's very tropey, and it's very much wearing its influences on its sleeve. But like, if you're a younger kid, it's probably going to be your first time encountering a lot of the things it's playing with. You're not watching a lot of heist movies when you're 8, 9 years old. You're not watching classic Peter Sellers, Pink Panther, or in like the Sean Connery era of James Bond movies.
You're not watching David Mamet plays, probably, which also the Sly Cooper reminds me like of like if David Mamet did G-rated stuff.
Yeah.
This is what he'd be doing.
Yeah, no, it's a PG take on just a lot of tropey things, but since it's like put into this, like, it's a raccoon because we can't really make guys in the PlayStation 2 look cool kind of package, so we can skew it young and get away with like being derivative, but since it's in like this fun package, it's charming and it's entertaining. It's like, we've said pulpy a lot, right? It's endearing. And that's probably just a good time. Let's just do the full transition into talking about Sly 2, Band of Thieves. Sly 2 Band of Thieves is a stealth action video game developed by Bellevue, Washington-based studio Sucker Punch and published by Sony Computer Entertainment for the PlayStation 2. This is the second game of the Sly Cooper series and the third game developed by Sucker Punch, who had previously developed the Nintendo 64 game Rocket, Robot on Wheels, before making the Sly Cooper trilogy on the PlayStation 2. Since the Sly Cooper series, they've developed the Infamous series of games, which is to say the series of games called Infamous, an infamous series of video games. They're quite consistent as a studio, frankly. They've also developed Ghost of Tsushima and its sequel, Ghost of Yotei, which came out in 2025. Now, for a little bit of background on Sly 2. The info I found on the game's development comes from some interviews on GameSpy archived by the Wayback Machine. Thank you, Internet Archive. As well as a bonus video on the making of Sly 2 that can be found in the PS2 version of the game. I've linked these sources in the description of this episode. Let me start first by talking about the art of the game. Something I really noticed on this playthrough is how much the cutscene art style looks like those humongous entertainment computer games. My millennial and older Gen Z listeners will definitely know about the Putt Putt, Freddy Fish, Pajama Sam, Spy Fox, those computer games, those educational computer games. Well, it turns out that several of those developers from Humongous Entertainment actually worked on the Sly Cooper games. Humongous was based out of Bothell, Washington, and Sucker Punch is in Bellevue, which are both in the Seattle metropolitan area, so geographically that makes sense. From what I could read, it looks like it was acquired by the holding company Infogrames, which is now known as Atari, and the co-founders of Humongous were going to buy it back using external funding. But then a little thing called the dot-com bubble burst, and then suddenly the funding was pulled. Not long after, Infogrames would lay off over 40% of the staff at Humongous. Thank God holding companies are no longer a problem in this industry, and that the video game industry isn't tied to a larger bubble related to AI that's, say, multiple times larger than the dot-com bubble ever was. That would be terrible. Anyway, that's why the Sly Cooper cutscenes kind of look like Freddy Fish. That's Spy Fox's cousin. They grew up in the same city. Anyway, so by my count, 8 former members of Humongous worked on this game, including Dev Madan, the game's art director. Comic books and cartoons were a tremendous influence on the development of the Sly series, and the intention was to make a game that felt like playing a cartoon. Madan himself had worked as a comic book artist at DC in the 90s and likened the development process to the comic book process. He compared the role of the designer to that of the writer for a comic, laying out the paths and structures with basic blocks. Modelers like senior artist Suzanne Kaufman or 3D modeler Paul Whitehead would be like the inkers, adding polygonal details to the world. And texture artists like Karen Yamagiwa and Hokyo Lim are like the colorists, painting and illuminating these worlds. According to Madan, game designers and concept artists brainstormed together. Madan came up with the locations as well as the boss designs for each level. The concept artists, such as Travis Katsubu, would then visualize and translate the locations into a cohesive art style. Nate Fox, who is actually a human and not a real fox, was one of the game's designers and is a creative director at Sucker Punch to this very day. He wrote and directed Sly 2's storyline. In an interview with GameSpy about Sly 2, Fox stated that Sly 2 was heavily inspired by 70s Saturday morning cartoons, film noir, Batman the Animated Series, and the original Tenchu game on the PlayStation. Sly 2 also took musical inspiration from the film composer Henry Mancini, known for his work on Breakfast at Tiffany's, the 1968 Romeo and Juliet, and the Pink Panther film series. Peter McConnell was the game's composer, replacing the original game's composer Ashif Hakik. Peter McConnell previously worked as a composer at LucasArts on games like Grim Fandango, and would go on to compose the remaining Sly Cooper sequels, as well as many of the games at Double Fine Productions, such as the Psychonaut series, Brutal Legend, and Broken Age. Bill Wolford was the game's sound designer. Voice production was done by Laurie Bauman-Arnold. As a sequel, Sly 2 Band of Thieves is an expansion and rework of the original's gameplay. It retains the episodic structure as well as a hub for each episode. Hubs now operate more like an open world that connects to discrete levels while also serving as a stage for many of the missions you carry out. All of these missions contribute toward the grander goal of pulling off a heist on a member of the Claw Gang. Greater emphasis is placed on the stealth and action elements, with the platforming elements of the original being more seamlessly integrated into the world design and atmosphere. One-hit deaths and limited lives have been replaced with a health meter, and Sly's moveset has been expanded to include more stealthy elements like pickpocketing enemies for coins and loot. Sly's friends Murray and Bentley are now fully playable characters you can switch between in the open world, and have their own missions only they can carry out, hence Band of Thieves. Unlike many mascot platformers, the Sly series, like its Ratchet and Clank and Jak and Daxter contemporaries, is propelled by a storyline that carries over from game to game. So we need to give a little bit of background on Sly and his origins. Sly is descended from the Cooper clan, a long line of master thieves who steal from other thieves. The Cooper clan's legacy have been chronicled throughout the generations in a leather-bound book called The Thievius Raccoonus. The Cooper clan legacy was unrivaled by any thief, save for one.
Clockwork. He was consumed with jealousy for the Cooper clan's thieving reputation. Is it inappropriate to refer to him as a monster? No, not at all. What kind of person stays alive for hundreds of years with the express intention of wiping out a rival's family line? Imagine the hatred fueling that first decision to replace his mortal body with soulless machinery. Ultimately, it did the trick. Clockwork lived on. He caught up with my parents, and I wound up in an orphanage. It's there that I met my pals, Bentley, the brains of our outfit, and Murray, the brawn. They turned out to be all the family I needed.
At the end of the first game, Sly is able to reclaim his family's stolen book and preserve their legacy after defeating Clockwork and leaving his disassembled parts to rot in a volcano. However, the parts were recovered by Interpol and were put on display at a museum in Cairo. This brings us now to the start of Sly 2 Band of Thieves, where Sly attempts to rob the museum with his crew composed of his two best friends. Murray, a pink hippopotamus who was a timid getaway driver turned brave heavy in the intervening years, and Bentley, a green turtle and the brains of the operation who is now stepping out into the field for the first time. Think Benji from the Mission Impossible films. As a turtle.
Breaker Alpha Foxtrot, this is the Wizard. Do you read me, Sitting Duck?
This is Peking Duck. I hear you, Blizzard.
No, Sly, I'm the Wizard, and you're Sitting Duck.
I read you loud and clear, Lizard.
No, I'm... Forget it, you're not taking this seriously.
Yeah, I'm not. Look, Bentley, I know this is your first time out in the field, but you've gotta loosen up.
During the heist, the gang are caught by Officer Carmelita Fox, a fox, and Sly's love interest on the other side of the law.
Freeze, Cooper.
Inspector Fox, as beautiful and unpredictable as ever.
Whereas you crooks are so predictable. You always return to the scene of the crime.
Crime? I haven't stolen anything. Yet.
Oh, really? Then who broke in last night and made off with all the clockwork parts? You've got the motive.
Someone already stole the parts?
Don't play dumb with me.
With Officer Carmelita is her new partner in force from Interpol, Constable Neela, a violet Bengal tiger with an accent I could never quite place.
It might not have been him, Carmelita. The method of entry and guard casualties all point to this being a Claw Gang job.
The Claw Gang?
Constable Neela, I allowed you to sit in on this stakeout as a favor to the Contessa. I really don't need any help. Oh, I think you might. Look at the facts. Facts? Sly Cooper is right here. I caught him red-handed. I'm just saying that there are other criminals in the world other than... Sly Cooper! After him!
Sly and his crew flee while the cops bicker, using the constable's clue to chase the real culprits of the crime, the Claw Gang. Each member of whom is using the uniquely durable clockwork parts for their illegal global spice trade. The lizard Dimitri is using the tail feathers as printing plates for his counterfeit cash operation in Paris. Clockwork's heart is being used by the tiger Rajan in India as a pump that accelerates spice production. So on and so forth. Sly, determined to keep the specter of his past from hurting anybody in the future, will have to pull off a series of heists across the world to take these parts back from the Claw Gang. Shenanigans ensue. Sly 2 Band of Thieves was originally released for the PlayStation 2 on September 14th, 2004. Other games released in 2004 include Cave Story, Grand Theft Auto San Andreas, Jak 3, Katamari Damacy, Metroid Prime 2 Echoes and Metroid Zero Mission, Prince of Persia Warrior Within, Ratchet and Clank Up Your Arsenal, Super Mario 64 DS, and Half-Life 2, which I covered a few episodes ago with my friend Anthony Barbara, and Metal Gear Solid 3 Snake Eater, which I covered in the very first episode of this show with our good friend and your co-host, Manu, aka Manuclear Bomb. Before we talk more about Sly 2, have you played any of these games?
I've played almost all of them. What a murderer's row. Man, that takes me back.
Good year.
It was so fun jumping away from from platformers and from more action-oriented games to just roll a Katamari around for hours and hours on end.
Mm-hmm.
I got Chloe into those games only recently, actually. She hadn't played them when they were out, and she got really, really into them for a while. So I was proud. The best work I've done as husband.
And I know Chloe's already done the gaming credentials here, but Katamari Damacy is a perfect game to show somebody who's not super into games, but it's we have games. Let's play some games.
It's true.
It's exactly the kind of game I'd show my partner who's not super into video games, but has a Switch and has like Stardew Valley and like Zelda and colorful stuff. And it's charming and it's universal despite how strange it is.
It's not Kojima or Tom Clancy.
It's not.
When maybe you don't drop someone in.
I'm not embarrassed to play it next to her, which I was a little bit when I was playing Death Stranding earlier. She was like reading. Oh my God. She was reading.
I love this already. Mm-hmm.
She was just like reading Audre Lorde. And I'm just there like playing the beginning prologue of Death Stranding. And like, they're just like only the cutscenes. And she's like, are you even playing this game? And like,
is this a game?
Looking up from her Audre Lorde. And I'm just like, it's a video game, I promise. I love Kojima. He's brilliant.
This is how he is. He's just a genius. It reminds me of there's a lot, and I love from Gilmore Girls when the grandma's trying to get the grandpa's attention while he's reading, and he finally goes, "I'm sorry, Emily. It takes a minute to emerge from Samuel Beckett. He's a strange man." That's what I feel about Kojima. It takes a minute to emerge from him. He's a strange man.
Mm-hmm.
Let it go.
You have to go on the journey. You can't just be reading Audre Lorde and then your boyfriend turns on Norman Reedus and she's like, "What's happening?" And I'm like, "I don't know either."
It's a hard one to semi-pay attention to. That's a hard one.
Yeah.
You got to be plugged into the context.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah. Katamari, probably better to play in the background. But yeah, 2004, great year for video games.
It's true. Metal Gear Solid 3, that was a mind blower.
Mm-hmm. Slightly less weird to play next to your girlfriend.
I think you can get away with that one probably.
Sometimes.
Might have to explain again. Might have to do the mythology. So how many guys are named Snake? A lot, but
so it's like an Adam and Eve story, but there's also an atom bomb, and then there's this guy Revolver Ocelot, and it's like, okay, I'm getting lost a little bit with this Revolver Ocelot guy. What's his deal? He's gay and he sucks, and we love him.
Remember the Cold War? Make it 10% gayer. Still, it was already pretty gay, but let's just ramp it up.
Look, there's no subtext. It's text. It's there. We're here.
Beautiful. Again, motto.
So great year for video games. This is a year with like Metal Gear Solid 3, Snake Eater, a year with Katamari Damacy. What made you ultimately settle on Sly 2, Band of Thieves, to talk about today?
Well, I was going back through them just because for a while they weren't available on their own on the PlayStation. You had to join whatever that service is to get access to them, and we weren't doing much else with it, so I let that lapse. But now they became individually available for purchase again, so I was going back through them. And this Sly 2 is my favorite of the bunch of the Slys because I think it strikes the perfect balance. The first one, like we were saying, is very, very charming, very unique, fun, but isn't that varied in terms of its gameplay. It's pretty predictable, and it does kind of get monotonous after a while. The third game I love. I've been playing through that one recently. A lot of fun, some great missions. There's like a whole rural China section where you get into like a wuxia duel in like a bamboo forest, like it's Crouching Tiger or A Touch of Zen. A great pirate section where you get to roam around, buccaneering a lot of ships. A lot of fun variety in the missions in that game, but it's a little overstuffed also because they went all in a lot of different playable characters and a lot of different kinds of missions. And some characters and some skills you only use once or twice, and they do feel a little extraneous. So I think they were pushing up against their boundaries of how much they could stuff into a game. Sly 2 is that Goldilocks, just right, baby bear. It's just perfect. It's so much more expansive than the first game because the first game has its little hub worlds, and then you go into little smaller worlds for one distinct mission there, and then you come back out to the hub world. And in Sly 2 and 3, it's much more open world oriented. You have much wider to roam in a given city or wherever you are, and you carry out missions, but they just tend to be within that overworld, and maybe you go into a building once or twice. So it does feel there are still plenty of loading screens, but it's much less so than in the first game. The atmospheres are a lot richer. It looks a lot better. It sounds a lot better. Like when you get into nature in Sly 2, it's the soundscapes are much denser than anything you encountered in the first game. And like I said, I love that premise of chasing down the severed body parts of your previous rival as a criminal gang puts them to use. And that as an excuse to go all over the world and get involved with all kinds of different criminals who will require different skill sets from you. Like we go from Paris, where our enemy is Dimitri, who's like like a fish man who was really into avant-garde painting before the establishment rejected him. So now he does forgeries. And he talks like purely in outdated slang. He's like the Disco Stew from The Simpsons. He's the Disco Stew of the Sly Cooper universe.
Yeah.
He's just like this bizarre, like he's literally a lounge lizard. Like that's what he is. And he's like wearing his anachronistic suits and talking about everything being hip and daddy-o.
What is this with clocks, bro? Have you no vision? Are you hearing what I mean to you? You think you have juice? Don't show me a little mind when talking about such big things. You think you can swing the bat? Show your bling and let me shine you.
I have no idea what you're saying. And your suit sucks.
No! Let's dance!
And you go from that to a spice manufacturing foundry in India where they're trying to get the whole world hooked on illegal spice. So it goes from like charming heist in Paris to Dune, basically.
Yeah.
As you proceed through the levels. So they really use that globe-trotting excuse to their full advantage. That's part of why I love it.
Yeah. Talking about like the trilogy aspect of this, right? I think Sly can be compared to Crash in a specific way where like the first game is just like a developer going, I have an idea. And then
proof of concept.
They release it and it's like, we don't have Kickstarter back then. We're releasing the game with the resources we have, and you're going to respect it more than you're going to love it, because Crash 1 is a tough hang a lot of the time, and they don't really have like a grip on like making the game comfortable to play, but it's charming and we respect it. And then there's Crash 2, which rips, and we love Crash 2. And it's like, we agree. Everything you guys had a problem with, we agree. And Sly 2 is similar. Those problems, we also had problems with those. You felt like you were going through like prefabricated sets instead of like wandering through a world and sneaking around when you're a thief. We agree. We're going to actually make this a stealth game, and we're going to make it a world that you are sort of trying to sneak around in, instead of like, here is a level and you got to get through it, get the key, get some bottles, get the key, get some bottles, get some keys, open a door. It's a boss. This is your first time talking to this boss. No, you are doing reconnaissance. You are taking pictures. You're planning a heist. And the heist concept here is so fucking great. And it's just like a really cool way of like having a formula and giving yourself a sense of pacing and build up in anticipation of this boss fight. These people you're seeing from a distance and learning about and trying to get the drop on. It's a good setup. And then there's a third game that is also great, but like with Crash 3, it's like, this is a good game, but he's on a motorcycle now, and it's like, I don't love the motorcycle, honestly. And lots of Sly 3 feels like I'm on the motorcycle in Crash 3, where it's like, I don't hate this, but it just feels like you didn't have enough to do with the core things. So you're just like, what else? What else? What else?
What haven't we done in the second one? Yeah, you do get that palpable feeling in the third one. Whereas, the heist structure in the second one is just so tight. Because, I think what you said is really, really important to how it works, is that you're constantly taking pictures of the bad guys, or interfering with their operations, or bugging their room, or hearing as they chew out their underlings. So there's this real sense of excitement, and there's that thrill you get in the same way you would, watch a heist movie or watch Batman sneaking around Gotham. There's something always thrilling about watching someone just barely not get caught. That's a lot of the appeal in a much more complex way of the Metal Gear Solid games too. Sly just kind of translates that to that gleeful, childish level, and you really get a sense of build-up. Yeah, it's not the kind of the flat level after level structure you saw in the first one. That every mission you're doing in the second one is building on the previous one. Bentley has his. I love Bentley's adorable little PowerPoint presentations, his little projector presentations that he does. Every few missions we go into the cutscene, and Bentley's nice lady voice comes on. As he's just like showing you slides and like drawing with crude, like he's an NFL sportscaster drawing plays on the screen as he sets up the missions to come.
The island is called Little St. James. We're gonna get the files.
It's beautiful, and it's again, it's cute, it's charming, it sets the tone very well. It's funny to imagine Bentley like assembling all these pictures while the guys sit around like, how many hours? Only 8 more hours till the presentations, guys. Every few missions he's got to do this, which makes for a fun twist in the third one, where in the middle of one of those presentations, suddenly pictures of one of the bad guys start showing up, and you learn that the bad guy stole Bentley's computer and is basically hacking his presentation. So they do throw a nice little twist on it at that point. But yeah, those presentations are perfect for, all right, we did a few missions, here's what we learned, here's what went wrong, maybe someone got kidnapped, maybe we got found out somehow, here's what we got to do to compensate. And then eventually Bentley gets to plan the whole operation, the climactic heist for that section. So that kind of the big blowout feels really earned because you know every detail that went into this. Like, of course, I stole those jewels so Murray could have that saw so we could cut the wings off that statue while I'm dancing with Carmelita. Everything falls into place.
Yeah, very Ocean's 11, right? Oh, they're about to get away with it. And then like something that doesn't go according to plan happens and you're like, and they improvise and they narrowly get away with it. But there's like twists within that, and we'll get into that shortly. We're going to have a segment before we get into the proper spoilers for what happens exactly in Sly 2. So before we get into that, let's have a little bit of time and place here. Do you remember when you first played this game?
Yeah, it would have been those golden halcyon days of 2004. Cut to like a flashback, and American Idiot is playing in the background, and some dorky teenager playing me. Yeah, so
How
I would
did he
have
win
been...
the election twice?
This period piece already. Yeah, so it would have been 2004. I would have been like 14, I guess, at the time. So like in tone terms, like on the verge of maybe being a little too old for something like this. Like if the first game had come out when I was 14 instead of I think when I was 12, I probably would have liked it a lot less because I was more to something tonally along the lines of Jak 2 at that age. But this was just well made enough and so clearly a more muscular expansion on the first game that it drew me in. Yeah, I think I played it through like pretty aggressively over the course of one long weekend because I just got hooked into it and then kind of came back to it in bits and pieces before the third one came out. So, but yeah, this one reeled me in much harder than I was expecting it to, especially like you say in a year where we didn't know how good we had it.
Yeah. My first experience with Sly was Sly 3, actually. Sly had always been like a friend's house game for a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
One of these friends came over. It was like a Thanksgiving dinner, and we had hours and hours to kill. And he was like, hey, check this out, Sly 3. And it's like, I don't really know the other ones. Like, you don't got to know the other ones. You can just sort of drop in here. And there is like the way that game's cold open works is like, where am I? Where are you? And it's like, yeah, it's supposed to be like that in context of the game too. Don't worry. And I'm like, what? But like, I just found it so instantly gripping because there's narrative in here in a way that there wasn't in my ESRB approved games that I was otherwise playing with around that time, right? As goofy as the cartoon raccoon thievery game is, there is an actual dedication to the craft of like telling a story, even if the dialogue isn't elegant, even if the story is fairly derivative, consciously even, because it's like we like what we like and we want to make this into a little game for y'all. Despite all that, like it just felt like it was taking itself seriously and having a good time. And especially with the whole like episode 1 title card, this is the story that we're doing. It has a sense of tone and atmosphere and character writing that it just felt like elevated as much as like an E-rated action stealth game could be.
It felt cinematic in a different way than like something like the remaster of Final Fantasy VII is cinematic. Like, that's, big, attention grabbing, looks like a movie a lot of the time. But with the Sly games, especially the second one, you feel this love of cinematic storytelling. Especially, I love those title cards. Every time you go to a new place, it's Sly Cooper and the gang in, some extremely punny or silly title that has to do with where you're going. And they love that kind of that excitement they know that's going to create in you, in the same way that if you're a fan of Star Trek and the opening music starts playing and you get ready for the adventure this week. And that also is something like, every episode of The Next Generation is structured exactly the same way. It has 5 acts, and before the ad break, so we got to elevate the story. Some new piece of information's come along. Every Star Trek episode has that structure, but it doesn't matter because you have that within that familiarity, then you have room to improvise. And that's kind of the magic of watching those episodes. And same with the Sly Cooper games. They never are going to surprise you in terms of the mechanics involved, really. I mean, they, again, advance for the second one, but in very kind of predictable, logical ways. But they want to activate that sense of comfort and familiarity in you. And I think they do so in a lot of different ways.
Right. Like an equivalent like kid version thing, right, is Batman the Animated Series. It's like this is a show that airs on a kid's network, but it has a distinct style. It has that Art Deco style, and it just like takes itself seriously, and you take it seriously because it's asking you to, and you buy into it, and like the character stuff is just really nice, and it tells its story well, and it compels you, and it sticks with you even after you have maybe moved on to more mature storytelling that's more thoughtfully crafted and more elegantly told. But you can just feel like this is something that is approaching me. You know, it's not approaching me in a kiddie tone. It's not like looking down on me like, hey, kid. It's certainly like skewing young, like they're not going around saying bad words, but it is like, oh, this is serious. Oh, we're having fun. We're having fun because this is serious, but not like scary serious. I like this. This is different from what I'm used to.
It's not sloppy. It doesn't take an excuse of being kind of aimed at a younger audience and having a younger tone to be sloppy. Like, they really like their tight storytelling. They really love the structure of building up every location with different missions and finding out new information that's going to influence the next thing you do. They like thinking through like distinct little environments that are made for a specific set of skills that you might acquire along the way. And like I was saying earlier, one of the things I really like about Sly 2 is that they had to approach level design with all three characters in mind. Because in the first game, you're only playing as Sly, and Sly, being a raccoon, can jump around objects and scurry up buildings and do a lot of physical things that Bentley the Turtle and Murray the Hippo can't, because Bentley's much more the brains and has a lot of technology but can't go climbing around, and Murray's much heavier and he can take down the enemies a lot easier but also can't climb like Sly does. So you can see in those levels, the level design in Sly 2, almost all of them are built on kind of multiple tiers. You have like a rooftop, or, you know, top of rocks or tops of trees, tops of huge church spires that are like, hey, this is the Sly area. This is where, unless you find the exact combination of trampolines in this area, only Sly is going to be able to get up here. So we can orient the enemies, we can orient the collectibles, we can orient the missions up here, all around things Sly can do. And the fact that Bentley and Murray would be useless up here, we've made that not matter, but it's elegant because it's not like Bentley can't access this part of the world at all. We've just constructed it that it makes more sense for you to get Sly up here, and Bentley and Murray can function at a lower level. So there'll be like a kind of a middle tier of smaller roofs or balconies that Bentley and Murray can get to, or you're just running around at street level. So all the kind of the level design in Sly 2 works that way. Like there's an India level with huge trees and large waterfalls that requires you to play as Sly to scale up and go collect weird objects or go plant a bug over here. So then you can have later a Bentley mission that's more about spying and shooting darts, and he can get along this bridge over here to take care of that. So I imagine, again, I wasn't in the room either, but it feels to me like the level design flowed pretty organically from their choice to flex their muscles in terms of character mechanics and having very different kinds of playable characters. I do think the level design was downstream from that in a way that really made the game work.
Yeah, it definitely did. And I'll engage with that in a second here. But to go back to like my Batman and Sly Cooper comparison here, like a lot of kids stuff, that stuff's pulling from like other kids stuff that works for other kids, and we're gonna give our spin on that, and that can work. But I think what made like Batman the Animated Series and the Sly series so special is like they're looking a bit outward and being like, well, we like the Italian Job, we like Ocean's 11. Let's take that and then show a kid that in a more responsible manner. Or like how Batman the Animated Series is like, well, we like noir stories. We like 1930s, 40s, 50s. Humphrey Bogart is here, sort of like stories. Let's do that. But like, hey kid, these aren't real cigarettes, but let's show you how like cool this style is. You know about Art Deco? You know about Art Deco, kid?
You do now, even if you don't know what it is. So then later when you are older, you can recognize it and it activates that instinct in you. Yeah, it functions as a gateway, which I think a lot of great art design for that age group can do. It's something that introduces you to older things, that pulls you back. Like when I listened to Nirvana when I was a young, angsty Jak 2 teenager, and Nirvana would, bring the Meat Puppets on stage or cover these other bands. And that's how I found out about like Sonic Youth and the Pixies, and could go back from there. And it's always interesting when you have artworks of whatever medium that are so heavily freighted by references. And it seems obvious to the people making it or to adults coming back to it, but it's not for a kid it's their first or second encounter with this. Like I think of something like Pulp Fiction, which so much of the discourse around Pulp Fiction and Tarantino in general is like all the influences and all the references and the love of film history and different genres. But if, the target audience for Pulp Fiction did not know who Jean-Luc Godard was, or had not read any of the stuff Tarantino had read, like that was their earliest incarnation of the tropes. And that's the magic, is taking something well-worn, taking something derivative, and presenting it in a way that where even if you, the person making it, know it's not fresh, to your audience, it feels that way, especially if your audience is younger. And that was the alchemy at work here, I think.
Right. Like for me, I watched Bill and Ted before I watched a lot of older movies.
Before The Seventh Seal. Yeah, that makes sense.
I've watched The Seventh Seal now, and I've watched A Matter of Life and Death, the Powell and Pressburger movie. And those are fantastic movies. They're phenomenal. They're some of the best films ever made. And knowing that Bill and Ted took from those movies makes Bill and Ted better for me. It doesn't make Bill and Ted a worse movie. It makes it a funnier movie that they're watching Powell and Pressburger and Ingmar Bergman and going, yeah, and these two himbos are in this situation, and it's the escalator to heaven is what they're taking up there from and what are they trying to do again? They're just trying to like pass a history class. Yeah. Or In Bogus Journey, which is an even weirder movie where it's like, and their robot clones killed them, and they're trying to get out of hell. And it's like, yeah.
Mm-hmm. It's all worth. Yeah, exactly. That and part of it is, I think, sometimes it comes off as people who like wish they could be making that stuff instead. Certainly. But a lot of it, I think, is about trying to make it seem new for a new generation, and also to introduce a new tone into it, taking something serious and maintaining the seriousness of it, but introducing sillier elements to it. I mean, Batman is a perfect example of that. That's the great line that Batman has always walked, is influenced by noir, influenced by Gothic traditions, all the stuff about trauma and duality and paranoid corruption. You can tell with a story like that, but you have a guy with two faces, and you have a guy who dresses up like a penguin, and you have these absurd, silly, pulpy elements, and the fascination is watching those two things combine and watching kind of what they do to each other. Mm-hmm. And that's also the fun of a game like Sly Cooper, where like one of the prog levels, you're like in the middle of a war between Interpol and a gangster. Mm-hmm. You have like this intense, like corrupt political military conflict going on, but your job in the middle of that conflict is to like go get some ghosts and release the ghosts into Interpol headquarters.
Yeah.
So to the trickling down of those more adult stuff into child-oriented content is fascinating.
Yeah, there's no ideology in the Sly Cooper video games, but
certainly not.
It is like taking ideas from the real world and presenting them in a very neutral manner to kids, right? Like the idea of like, this is a crooked cop. You're playing as thieves who are the good guys, by the way, but there are also thieves who are much worse than them because the target they're picking, right? It's like we teach Robin Hood from a very early age.
Also a good example, the Fox, the Robin Hood, the Disney Robin Hood, but the Fox feels like an influence on Sly Cooper, I think, in terms of overall tone. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's like George Clooney as the Robin Hood Fox, which is Fantastic Mr. Fox, mind you, but we'll come back to that.
The descendant of Sly Cooper, Fantastic Mr. Fox, yeah.
And the Descendants is a film starring, exactly. Yeah, it's just like this synthesis of like, let's take stuff, these like adult ideas, and then show them to a kid in this space, and we're just having fun with it. And it sticks to us for as long as it does, because it felt different than what we were experiencing at that age when everything else was like either hard and edgy and we were seeking it out because it was thrilling, or it's more kid stuff.
Yeah. And just like we were talking about tone and atmosphere a lot, because that's a lot of what makes these games special to me is tiny details, tiny choices of light and music, little details you could stumble across that made the world feel very distinct. Even something like him running across some wires in the beginning and like pigeons flying off in the distance as he does so, little dust clouds emerging. All that stuff really gives you a strong sense of place. And that, I think, is only enhanced by the kind of the mission structure of building up one little mission over here, one little mission over here, so you really get a strong sense of the place every time you go to a new world, which is also enhanced by how they use the bottles. Also, the reason this is my favorite Sly Cooper game is the bottles were one of the main collectathon objects, as you were talking about with the first one, and there were just way too many of them. Like every level in Sly 1 has like 20 or 30 bottles, and it's just endless and relentless, the amount of collecting you have to do. In Sly 3, unfortunately, there are no bottles. They got rid of my beloved little clue bottles that you break, probably because they were hearing complaints about how much collecting was involved in these games. I get it, they were trying to move away from it. But the second one found the perfect compromise, that each overworld, each general level design that you're going to, whether you're in Paris or India, each overworld has like 20 bottles. And they're not in the missions themselves, because unlike Sly 1, there are no kind of smaller worlds to go into off the hub. You're mostly just in the overworld. So there's much fewer of them, and just finding them gives you a good excuse to explore the level and get a sense of the map and where the major areas of enemy activity are, even before you carry out a mission. That's what I would do in Sly 2. As soon as I go to a new world, I go around and find the bottles, mostly because I got the worms in my brain, and that's just what I want to do. But also because it's a great way before I start any mission to get a sense of the layout and ways I can get around as each individual character. Whereas in the first one, there's no advantage to that, because there's no advantage to exploring any level at all, because you're just there for one specific mission to get the key and then you're gone. You're not going to go back. And the third one, they kept the kind of the larger, the single level in each area that they had from the second one that you were exploring, the more continuous area. But without something to collect like the bottles, there's less of an incentive to explore each individual world. You can, certainly, and it's still fun. But the second one, again, struck that balance of they gave you just enough to collect that it would organically lead you into checking out the world they had built without weighing you down with a constant need of a list to just keep checking off.
Yeah, like you go into like one of those like fun house museums, like a Meow Wolf or something like that, and they always give you an activity to do there.
Yes.
So like you are encouraged to like explore the different sides of these things, and then like not only get yourself familiar with the layout, but it is like a way that you're encouraged to actually like take in and not just go from one place to the next and it kind of washes over you. Like this way, like you're motivated, and it's the hidden Mickey thing with Disney World, right?
Yeah. The immersion, as they love to call it. Mm-hmm. The environmental storytelling.
Right. This game, the developers talked about how they were influenced by amusement parks for their level design. This idea of like, we need like a central or iconic area that we can orient the player to. Like in Paris, it's going to be the nightclub with Dimitri's. Like that is the centralized, like, okay, I know where I am because I know what that gauche looking thing looks like, and I'm oriented over in this direction. Got it. Like it'll give you the waypoint things that you can press the R3 button to find again, R3 or L3, one of those. But also level design wise, like the amusement park principle, you have something you can orient yourself to. Amusement park design is just very much in the language of great video game design in general.
That's true.
Nintendo does it. Square Enix games will do it, and Sly Cooper 2 did it. So
yeah, I mean, your motivation is the same. You're thinking about how to organically flow movement in the direction you want. You want your people or your players to go where you want them to go without feeling like they're being forced. That's the part of a problem with a game like Sly 1 is it feels a little less organic, like we were saying. But yeah, that's the amusement park principle. Makes total sense. They kind of are explicit about that in the third one, where the big showcase visual in the Italy level of the third game is literally a Ferris wheel. So it's
oh yeah, I remember that now.
It's built into it there.
Yeah,
yeah. I love the gauche nightclub in Paris is hilarious, and it's so satisfying because you get to pull that thing down during the final heist at the end of that level. So that's also the fun, is you get really used to these areas, and then you get to watch them destroyed in some way or another.
You have an influence on it for as much time as you spend in them, and even if it's a small thing, like blowing up a bridge, and that bridge isn't really blown up, but there's cracks in it now, or you get to pull a little piece of a nightclub down with you. It's like, I did that. Or
that was me.
In Prague, you see planes flying around in addition to tanks, and you're like, I escalated a war between a police and a criminal.
I know, right? Like that area is busy enough, and then once you hit a certain level, just the planes start coming in. You got to creep your way in and out of the Gothic castle when you're not dealing with the Interpol tanks across the street. Yeah, that's wild. Or the one Canadian level where it's all built around the train tracks, and that's more ambitious, kind of in terms of level design, because there is not much of a one distinct visual. Like there are a couple of high places in that Canada level, but mostly the distinct eye-catching visual element is the train itself, which is always on the move. So I'm sure that one must have been interesting to think through in terms of level design.
I do like a train. So before we talk more about Sly Cooper, we also have to talk about how readily available this game is, so people who want to check it out are able to play it, in a little segment I do every episode called No Country for Old Games. Something I've had a conversation with my partner about lately, because she wanted to get a age-appropriate video game for her nephew, who is starting to get into video games, but everything is either Roblox or extremely violent video game. And I thought about this, right? Because Astro Bot had just come out, and of course we love Astro Bot, but Astro Bot is also, as much as it skews young, is also like, so much of it is like, hey, look at all these other properties that exist, right? Some of which no longer are available. And some of which, still exist, but like the ones that skew young are among the ones that have sort of faded into obscurity, right? As places like Insomniac and Naughty Dog and Sucker Punch have evolved, like so too have like the tone of their games being more for teen and mature audiences. And like it feels like there aren't as many non-Nintendo options in the mainstream for children anymore that aren't functionally casinos. Not to say that there are zero, but like you think of like the amount of like games marketed towards kids in like on TV and whatever now versus like everything being a nightmare for kids to navigate now, and it's kind of a stark difference.
Yeah, that's unfortunately a good point. I wish it wasn't, but it is. It's part of that kind of polluted information ecosystem that is targeting younger audiences in a really nefarious way. Yeah, a lot of it kind of oriented towards the gambling side of things. In games, as with anything else, I think eras we end up being nostalgic for are kind of accidental, right? Or kind of transitional eras where people with the money didn't necessarily know what they had on their hands and didn't exactly know how to be as ruthless about it as they could later be. But it does seem like more of a barren landscape in terms of, like we were saying about the gateway concept of games that can get you into aesthetics or ideas or just thrills and chills that are normally reserved for an older age group. I would struggle with kind of trying to set that connective tissue up for a kid. Like you say, it's still possible, but it does feel like it used to be easier than it is now.
Yeah, like for a lot of reasons, it's just harder to find stuff for kids. One thing, right, is like the things that were appropriate for kids are also like being marketed towards adults now, like with Lego, and a lot of stuff in the toy space they're making things for the people who have the money to purchase these things. And
I was about to say, with the price tags accordingly. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Some of the Lego sets, I had a coworker who was really into building Lego kits, and I could not believe the price tags on some of those. Like, I get that they're intricate and take forever, but I always think of Lego as the stuff I would lose, and then my dad would step on one 6 months later.
I love Lego. I haven't been able to get into it as much post lockdown because of how expensive it's gotten. And there are a couple sets I have got, right? Like talking about things marketed towards adults. I have the Seinfeld Lego set.
Oh, nice. A connoisseur, I see.
Yes. But does that not speak to the problem of
the very existence of a Seinfeld Lego set? Yeah, probably does.
The core concept, like Astro Bot, has stuff that kids can enjoy, and they don't need to have the context of enjoying the things that have been made for the past. Like they don't need to have the concept of like what the last 30 years of PlayStation's history was like to enjoy the game, because it is mechanics forward. But this idea that like it is still like a celebration of like 30 years of history, like your parents know about this, but that's a whole different conversation I'm getting into. Like, I just want to talk about how this is a game that's perfect for a child. And
exactly.
Fortunately, it is available now on the PlayStation Network, but it's the kind of thing where I wish we wouldn't have to look for these things and have to go this far back to be able to like immediately be like, oh, this game, right? The thing that brought the Lego thing to mind is like, I guess the Lego games that they make are for kids, but like Lego Star Wars is also like, Star Wars is kind of for kids, and also it is not anymore.
Mm-hmm.
They're catering to adult fans who are the loudest about their issues. We don't have to, we can't use the Sly 2 episode
history of the last 10 years of the internet we're getting into here. So yeah, this is true. But yeah, the problem I have with a lot of that kind of pandering is how cynical it ends up being, and the joy ends up being wrung out of it, which is too bad, because if you're going to be nostalgic, if you're going to embrace the kind of blind, embarrassing qualities of nostalgia, what you should be getting out of it is a palpable sense of joy. And that's what these games still bring me, and that's what like, there's nothing more fun than introducing something to a kid and watching their eyes light up, right? Like, that's the best feeling in the world. And you want to create that rather than something that will be numbing. But I say that not being a parent. So it's easy for me to say that. When I introduce a kid to something cool, it's a relative or a child of a friend. So I don't have to worry about keeping their little brains occupied for hours a day. So I can't blame anyone necessarily for dumping them in front of slop, I guess. But that definitely makes me sad, because those were so many cherished moments in my own bygone days of youth in another century, and I would love to be able to recreate that more.
Yeah, like the thing I'm respecting more and more about Sly is how it is a synthesis of so many derivative things that these developers liked, but it is presented to them as a new thing. It is presented to the audience as a new thing, incorporating these heist movies, these old noir stories, these spy movies of old, your old like Hitchcock era of like
or James Bond even is an influence there too.
Yeah, your North by Northwests and your To Catch a Thief era Technicolor Hitchcock stuff and your early James Bond stuff. That stuff is definitely in its DNA. It is also not what a kid is like. A kid doesn't feel like I'm missing information.
Exactly. That's what you want to avoid.
And because Astro Bot's own aesthetic sensibilities are stripped back in favor of being a branding exercise for the PlayStation and its history, I feel a little bummed, even though I love this game. It was one of, if not my favorite games of 2024. I just feel a little bummed if a child who is an appropriate age to play with and enjoy this game just feels left out, because it's like, I enjoy this, but there's just like, I feel like I'm missing so much here. And I think kids want to understand and they want to be able to enjoy something. And the idea of like, here is something and it's important. I don't want to show a child a movie or whatever because it's important. I want to show it to them because I enjoy it, and I think they would enjoy it too if they gave it the same. I like sharing.
Exactly. No, that's exactly right. And I think that alchemy we're talking about is peculiar and difficult, but you know it when you see it. Like we talked about Star Wars and how, there's like so much of the conversation around that original movie now is, again, based on the influences, based on, here's the Kurosawa part of Star Wars, and here's the influence from Westerns on Star Wars, and here's the Flash Gordon part, and here's the pulp serial part. But the reason that movie changed everything and made all the money in the world is because for a lot of the target audience had never seen or even heard of those things, but recognized this as a fresh myth of their very own. That can be difficult to triangulate, because I think, true originality is a thing where you can debate whether it actually exists or not. It's a question of whether you have a creative spark that comes out of throwing your influences together. And I think with something like Sly 2, a lot of the fun for me is the different kinds of genre modes they try. Like that they do flirt with outright horror when you get to Prague. And there's like spider webs and vultures, and it's really dark, and it's all like gothic spires, and there's like a mental asylum where they're torturing people. It's all pitched at the level of like, if Ren and Stimpy had to go to a mental hospital. Again, it's not serious or like dealing with dramatic emotional effects, but it is like a kid will notice the emotional difference of, I've gone from a wacky level to a spooky level. Mm-hmm. And that makes you engaged, and that makes you feel the transition, which I think is something that was really important to me when I was younger with games and movies and music, or like moments when it would change, moments when, go back to Nirvana, like the reason the loud, quiet, loud recipe was so popular in alt rock for a while is because it took you through a series of changes and made you really aware, oh, here's the loud part, oh, here's the quiet part. And those kind of being whipsawed through your emotions, I think, is very valuable at a young age, because you're kind of learning how to deal with that safely, like feeling one way and then all of a sudden violently feeling another way. But it's okay because you're just playing a game, so there's no real impact. But it's getting you used to that sensation, which I think is important.
Yeah, I think that it is healthy for somebody to build a relationship with somebody and have that credibility be built through the interaction. When you're watching a movie, it's building credibility in your mind because you are having a good time with it. If you're watching a TV show, you become attached to these characters because you find it compelling how they're written. Like, it's not because somebody put it in front of you and said, this is good and you like this. It is because like you're spending the time with this. And it's like the way that we have relationships with people is like reflective of how we have relationships with art. And this idea of like, here's all this important stuff makes it feel like we're reinforcing this hierarchical thing where like a kid is like, well, that person's popular and cool, and therefore I like them and stand behind them or whatever, versus like, how an organic relationship builds with an individual where you're like, well, I am connecting with this person and I like them because they mean something to me, not because like it's reinforcing some social hierarchy of like importance or like popularity.
Right. I mean, ideally, what you want is to follow your interests and to let them lead you to new things that you can then love or don't love, and that's chasing the feeling of the things I liked is what has led me in so many great directions. Really, when I look back on my life, it's what has led me to all the best moments and decisions of my life was cultivating an awareness of what I liked and why I liked it, and having that kind of influence. Yeah, and like you're saying, I think that was true for my taste in art, but also in terms of my relationships. And I think those two influenced each other not only because I shared great moments of creativity and art with people, but also because there was a level of self-awareness or self-reflection involved when I was getting more into different games or different movies or different music. And that being able to self-reflect in that way, again, in a fictional environment where it didn't actually matter, was, I think, emotional groundwork for how I would self-reflect in terms of how I had relationships with other people. So I think it is important, even if the relationship is not always one-to-one, or obviously it's very evanescent and different for everybody, et cetera, et cetera. But that is one of the reasons it's interesting beyond just pure nostalgia to go back to games from that era, because it may sound overblown, but it's like, oh, this is what taught me to think in a certain way. Like the stuff I was encountering when I was younger. This is what set up my brain patterns that I'm still working through. So that's powerful to go back to it.
Yeah, like a part of you was built here.
Exactly. And it's waiting for me whenever I go back.
Yeah. So back to Sly 2 Band of Thieves, the PlayStation 2. The subject of video game preservation means a great deal to me because I believe that video games are an art form and create experiences that leave some kind of impact on the people who play them, as indicated by the last hour and a half of this episode. Unfortunately, this means very little to the publishers who have historically struggled with keeping their older games on modern hardware. And as time goes on, games that were once readily available to purchase become more and more difficult to acquire. So in this segment, we're going to quickly rate this game on a scale of A to ARG. And ARG is obviously an expression of frustration and how hard it is to acquire a game in the modern age. And it is not me covertly advocating for piracy, which is illegal. Do not think about the fact that this is a game about thievery and how cool it is.
Do not. And by the way, you can't see him, but Keifer's wearing a pirate hat throughout this entire conversation. Don't let him tell you differently. He's absolutely doing it. He's got a parrot on his shoulder right now. An eye patch is appearing.
My eye patch is appearing? It's growing out of my head?
Yeah, but we might have to have that looked at. That seems like a medical condition.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on with that. It hurts.
I would imagine so.
Yeah. So, as a PlayStation exclusive, this has a relatively straightforward history of availability. It was originally released for the PlayStation 2 in September of 2004, and it was it stayed there. It didn't get ported to other consoles, except within the PlayStation ecosystem. For example, the Sly Collection, a collection of the first 3 Sly Cooper games, was released on November 9th, 2010 for the PlayStation 3. It includes all 3 original games remastered in high definition. A port that got a good reception at the time, but hardcore fans of the series struggle with because of the ways it does change things in small ways that when you notice it, it drives you kind of crazy. For example, because of it being translated to widescreen in a way where it is actually showing more of the world around you, the effect of like having a name card appear when a new character is introduced, like Sly Cooper. It'll have like a blue background and it's like the thief, because it's at 16:9, like a little bit of the game background. The title screen doesn't cover the whole background. So there's just like, there's Cairo behind him. So there's just a lot of like weird side effects of it being a 4x6 game translated into 16:9. If you want the full list of like version differences, the changes that Sanzaru, the people who developed this port and would go on to develop Sly 4, Thieves in Time, I have attached a link to the Sly Cooper wiki in the description of this episode, a page that does actually detail the differences there. So check it out. I don't want to take up too much of the runtime going into the minutia there, but just wanted to shout it out. It was released physically in stores. I have the Sly collection myself, and it was released as a digital download on the PlayStation Store on November of 2011. You can buy these games Each title in the collection was made available as a separate purchase, and it's also cross-buy, so buying the digital version will also give you the PlayStation Vita version in addition to the PlayStation 3 version, that PlayStation Vita port coming out in 2014. To this day, you can still purchase the digital versions of these games on their respective stores, and it is still a cross-buy. Of course, as I've gone into on episodes covering the PlayStation 3, the way of allocating funds to the PlayStation 3 is insane, and you got to look it up, but yes, you can still buy games on the PlayStation 3 and the PlayStation Vita to this day. You could also stream the Sly collection on PS Now, ironically named because it is now defunct, as of June of 2022, where it was merged with PlayStation Plus. PlayStation Plus premium subscribers can now stream the PlayStation 3 version as of September 20th, 2022. And that was the main way you could play Sly 2 until...
That's what I played at first. Yeah, and then...
Yes, and then December 10th, 2024, an emulated port of both Sly 2 and Sly 3 Honor Among Thieves were released on the PlayStation 4 and 5. Sly Cooper and the Thievius Raccoonus, the original game, was released earlier. These are all ports of the PlayStation 2 versions of the game with an emulation menu you can access by pressing the start button on your controller. It has quality of life features in that emulation menu, such as the ability to change the resolution of the screen, the ability to change like what kind of screen filter you want on it. It has save states, it has rewinds, and so on. And while those filters I don't particularly care for, I do appreciate the save states and the rewinds and the other quality of life additions on there, right? You can put it so it's 4:3 on a 16:9 screen or a 16:10 screen as well. So you can purchase and own a digital version of this game for $9.99 on PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5. Subscribers of the premium tier of PlayStation Plus can download and play the game for free as long as they continue to pay for the subscription service. The PlayStation 3 and Vita stores are still functional, so you can still purchase and play the Sly Collection version of Sly 2 as an individual download separate from the whole collection. So, with all that being said, this is actually one of the better preserved PlayStation 2 games out there. So, far from an ARG and close to an A.
Sorry, Pirate's not going to ARG for you today.
Well, I won't tell people what to do with their money and time and value. But yeah, any PlayStation console after 2 has Sly on it, if you know where to look. How do you play this game?
So I paid the $9.99 for it because I got off of PS Now. I was paying for it at first when that first dropped in 2022, but I wasn't really doing anything else with that subscription. So eventually I just let it lapse. And then once last year, once the 3 games dropped for individual purchase, I bought those for the PS4. That's where I've been playing them. That's been terrific. It's always funny in the third game when the little 3D glasses prompts come up. That's a wonderful artifact of the era that a few chunks of Sly 3 where you could put on your 3D glasses to go through some of the levels. I remember mostly being into that. It was a little headache inducing at times back in 2005.
And then the PlayStation 3 ports, a lot of them, not just the Sly ones, but like the Jak and Daxter ones too, would lean into like, hey, do you like stereoscopic 3D? We have 3D versions of the game too. You like 3D? You want to do this 3D mode? And then like collectively as a society, we said, no, thank you. And it was like,
we're good.
All right, whatever.
Like in the sadly closed Muppet Vision experience at Disney, when they're like, we promise not to do any 3D tricks. Did someone say cheap 3D tricks? And they just start throwing pies at you.
Yeah.
It's basically that era of gaming.
Yeah. I'm glad that this is a game that is available because
Agreed.
It feels like games are hostile to children now. And it's nice that it's nice that we're actually able to show our children something that we like and it not be trying to be like, this is an important thing you're enjoying. This is an important thing you're enjoying. It is just Sly Cooper and his group of friends who are just trying to do some crimes together. I'm not trying to be like one of those return freaks or anything like that. I just think it's like a nice thing, and you can get it for $9.99, and you can show it to your child if you have one, or you can play the game yourself. It's quite good. If you don't believe me, it has an 88 out of 100 on the review aggregation website Metacritic. It is considered one of the best games released on the PlayStation 2, a console with thousands upon thousands of games on it, and it won and was nominated for various awards at the time of its release. But we're not here to reduce the legacy of Sly Cooper to a series of numbers and statistics and accolades. We're actually here to talk about the impact it made on people who played it, particularly one person today, Emmett. So let's get
Who,
into
me?
that. Yeah. Let's talk about the game's impact on you.
From worlds beyond to right at the gaming table, these are all my fantasy children.
Welcome all to All My Fantasy Children, and this is All My Fantasy Children. It's the tabletop-inspired world-building, character creation, and improvisational storytelling podcast, where each week Jeff and I take your brilliant listener-submitted prompt. This is from Merle. What do you mean you can't hear the song of the cranberry bog? Prompt is The Green Knight. Periwinkle Puzzle Paws, Kid Detective. And we take that prompt to create an original fantasy character, world detail, use it to develop an original fantasy world we've lovingly titled Fantasy.
The show is a proud part of the Moonshot Podcast Network. You can find more about the show at moonshotpods.com or wherever you get your podcasts.
What do you like about Sly 2, Band of Thieves, and what does it do that you wish more games would do?
Like I said, the confidence of the tone shifts is what really struck me when I played it for the first time. Again, that it dropped you alone with, not only just dropping you alone with Bentley, but dropping you alone with Bentley in the horror-influenced prog section, where the score turns minor key and there are shadows everywhere. I think the confidence to lean into that had an impact on me, because that's what I look for in stories across any medium. I like to be surprised. I like to not know where a story is going and watch the turns it takes me. Not even in just, big story twist ways, but changes of tone and atmosphere, and being like, I can't believe that this movie was like this half an hour ago and now it's going off in this direction. That definitely had a big impact on me. Again, the being able to smuggle a bonkers premise in that, like going after the severed organs of your previous rival.
The organs of the guy who killed his family.
The organs of the guy who killed his family. Now you are chasing down like his gallbladder across a continent. There was a level of giddy, gory silliness to that really, really appealed to me, and that I still look for whenever I'm out there looking for a new story to get into. But I think more than anything, what brings me back to this is it's how charming and silly it manages to be without ever getting ironic or ever getting cynical or ever tipping its hat too far or just ever getting embarrassed or ashamed of itself, which, like we've said earlier, I think is a kind of what started to happen with something like Jak and Daxter, even as I still like the later games. That unabashed quality, and, like I said, not using that as an excuse to be sloppy, which is, I think, what we see in a lot of stuff aimed towards kids nowadays, is using your child as an audience, using someone you assume to be stupid as your audience, as an excuse to be sloppy, and not thinking about how you are, in fact, molding a brain that is constantly changing, and kind of how you meet that as an audience. And I would hold up the Sly Cooper games, especially the second one, as a really great example of how to do that well. And that is something that is increasingly special. So it's important to me for that.
Yeah. All art is a struggle against some kind of limitation, but there is freedom in some of the limitations that you have, right? We can't make human beings look realistic in this era of console history, so we can just get a little weird with the creatures we're trying to create and sell to you today. You cannot use bad words and deal with mature themes as freely as you could in an M-rated game, but I do think that if you market a game as E for everybody, it is kid-friendly, and children have a much lower threshold for buy-in than an adult might, right? There's that Grant Morrison quote that you can attach here, right? About how adults ask too many questions and children are just like willing to buy the reality of the story you're telling them. But what's interesting about Sly Cooper is tonally it splits the difference with that, because it does like understand that it is a way for them to like do what they can do with a bit of free expression, but still ground the emotion somewhere, right? And that's how it plays with tone. It can be silly, and Sly Cooper can move like a Looney Tunes character animation-wise, but it can still sell you on the isolation that Bentley feels when his friends get kidnapped, right? It feels a little bit more exciting or thrilling when something like this throws you the curveball of like, oh yeah, and they successfully pulled off the heist and Rajan gets arrested in episode 2. What? No, he got away? We have to do another Rajan episode?
Mm-hmm.
And then that buildup of like, oh, Neela, the cop that we thought was like low-key cool and flirting with Sly, is actually a double, triple agent and betrays Sly.
Though statistically improbable, I had to face the facts. Neela had betrayed us, my teammates were captured, and I was all alone. While intellectually inferior, Sly and Murray had always been a rich source of sociological interest. The long walk out of the jungle gave me time to reflect, and with each passing step, my sense of isolation grew. Shockingly, my comrade's absence had a profound emotional effect on me. This was it. This was the true test of friendship. Upon reaching the van, my resolve was hardened. I had to save my friends. But first things first, I had to learn how to drive a stick shift.
It's that excitement of failure and like of having your understanding of what you were doing blown apart, and you get to be like, I can't wait to find out what happens next. That's my favorite feeling.
Something doesn't go according to plan, and your immediate reaction is like, I need to see where this goes next. It like does this great thing of like, okay, this section of the game is over. Let's make you excited for the next section of the game. Sly and Murray and Carmelita even get arrested.
Not my cop girlfriend.
Yeah.
Sadly, all Carmelitas are bastards.
My cop side girlfriend got me and my cop girlfriend arrested.
You can't have both women. What was I supposed to do?
Wait, think you can have a bunch of wives? You got one wife! This is the way the world works! Why?
I don't know.
It's too many cop girlfriends. Yeah, Neela, the other one, who I will say, if there's one, it's not even important enough to be a flaw, but one thing that stands out to me replaying the game is just how bad the voice acting with Neela is.
Oh, I should be thanking you. The look on Carmelita's face was priceless.
She took it hard, huh?
No one likes to have their affections played with.
I know I certainly don't. Look, Neela, as soon as this India job is over, why don't you and I go out on the town? We'll dance through Bollywood and eat curry all night long.
I'll keep it in mind. But first, the task at hand. I've learned of a secret entrance leading to half of the Clockwork Heart. Legally, I can't enter the premises without a warrant. But now a thief like you...
A thief like me can go wherever he pleases. I read you.
Don't fall behind while I lead you to the entrance. This place is thick with guards, and standing still can be lethal.
I hear that, sister.
I don't know if that's a Cockney person trying to sound Australian or an Australian person trying to sound Cockney, but somehow it's a fusion of those two accents, so that always stood out to me. And it's funny in terms of voice acting that they clearly got 3 different people to voice Carmelita in those first 3 games. And in the second one, despite being named Carmelita, she sounds about as white as you possibly can.
Yeah.
So that's just funny.
They're very indecisive about how Hispanic Carmelita is supposed to be in this trilogy.
All over the map.
Now that we're a team at all, I need to leave your side.
Hold on. This truce is only temporary. Once we beat Clockwork, I'm coming after you.
Really?
Well, maybe I'll give you a 10-second head start.
Inspector Fox, as beautiful and unpredictable as ever.
Whereas you crooks are so predictable.
Are you saying I've got some competition for your affections?
You're the only man in my sights right now.
Even though I do enjoy her characterization, or at least like the dynamic that she and Sly have, it is just a bit frustrating when like the voice acting is inconsistent between games, and the direction seems to be a bit inconsistent with her heritage.
Exactly. They weren't. They hit on an archetype at first and weren't kind of sure how to manage it going forward. But yeah, their banter is always flirty and fun and full of little innuendos that you get to enjoy.
Right.
A little later, coming back to it.
That was the thing I noticed on this playthrough, like specifically like the dynamic between like Neela and Sly being like,
I used to chase after you back in Paris.
Paris? Sly Cooper? You aren't by any chance here to turn yourself in? Old Ironsides would fall out of her dress.
As good as that sounds, how about a dance first?
Enchanté. Are you using me to get at Old Ironsides?
Yes, I am. Do you mind?
Not at all.
Basically stopping themselves short of like, we're fucking next, right? We're fucking like...
It has that screwball comedy kind of angle to it, which is fun for kids, you know, because it's fast banter back and forth. But but it's again, once you're older and you know that reference point, you know, all screwball comedies are about talking about sex without talking about sex. So that's actually a perfect language to use for a more PG rated thing.
Yeah, it's like Hays Code approved, like Clark Gable saying these kinds of... Yeah.
Yeah, they go all in on that when it's the dancing stuff, when Sly has to steal the tux and they're dancing in front of this, and you have to, you know, hit the buttons in the right order to pull off the dance moves. And if not, Carmelita's just going to be ashamed of you.
It's fun. It's like a little, it's not James Bond level, like, my name is, I like to fuck pussy butt.
Thankfully.
It is definitely like screwball comedy, like you said.
Yeah.
It's fun. I do think we've talked about the atmosphere this cultivates and this conscious work of making you attach to these characters and making you care about these characters and how they're able to sell you on tone shifts and plot twists because of like the buy-in you have with these characters. And I think that the thing that this game does the best is being a game that ends up greater than the sum of its parts, because it's not exceptional in any particular place, but it is very good at the things it's trying to do in a way that all the ingredients just mesh well together and it becomes just a really good, hearty meal.
Yeah, no, I think that's the perfect way of putting it. It's very solid. It's not mind-blowing. Obviously, you know, you were listing off the games of the era earlier, and, you know, for someone who hadn't played a game like it, Katamari is super mind-blowing. Obviously, Metal Gear Solid was advancing more and more and kind of reinventing the medium around it with every successive game, and Sly 2 is not anything like that. It's very much a throwback to things you're familiar with. But it's like with, you know, like cooking. You can arrange familiar ingredients in a new way each time and make them surprising. So it's not, Sly 2 is not filet mignon, but is one of the best grilled cheeses you're ever going to have.
Yeah. I mean, like, this is a game about meaningful and memorable video game experiences. We're not talking about like these are the objective best games with the best presentation and the best graphics and the most satisfying like tactility or what have you.
Top 10 list of games that changed gaming forever. Yeah, no, these games don't belong anywhere on that list, but it sticks in your memory.
The values that we have do not translate to every single person. We cannot create an objective measurement of anything. I can say something has the best raccoon story, and then by that metric, Sly 2 is the best video game of all time if we evaluate by presence of raccoon, ability to play as
raccoon screen time.
Yeah. Innuendo between raccoon and fox, best game of all time.
I hope so, unless there's a whole other gaming series I don't know about.
Yeah,
that's all they do.
Yeah, it's you can just make up the criteria for what you consider the best game of all time to be. We're not here to measure things objectively. We can do the filet mignon grilled cheese metaphor, but I'm not here to argue about like the artistic merit and what's the best and what's Citizen Kane or whatever. It's Sly Cooper's cane because he uses a cane to whack people with and also steal things.
Beautiful.
Yeah, I'm thinking about the Kane from Citizen Kane joke.
That's exactly what I was just thinking. Lisa Simpson going, wait a minute, there's no Kane in Citizen Kane. Oh, Lisa.
So, what else do you love about this game? We can actually like dip into the spoilers of everything now.
Sure. Well, spoiler, even though I'm not a fan of the voice acting in Neela, I do like the twist where she ends up the actual villain of the game, which is, it's really well set up because you have, just like the first game, you have series of criminals in location, you know, master criminal in Paris, master criminal in India, etc., that you have to confront and deal with and then move on from. And in the first game, you are building up to your confrontation with the big rival nemesis Clockwork, the, again, immortal mechanical owl who lives in a volcano and is powered by hate, as you do. And so when you get into the second game and you're learning more about the criminals you're going up against, and the story gradually leads you towards Arpeggio, wonderful villain name, who is a little bird who like lives in a little cage and is a mastermind, a technician, etc., etc. So you are directed to look at him as the main villain because the other villains are talking about him that way, and also he's a bird interested in mechanical stuff, just like the villain of the last game, and he's gathering all the clockwork parts to him. So you're all set up for him to be the bad guy. And then it turns out Neela's been working for him, and then she swoops in, kills him, and takes over the clockwork body for her own. Great little setup narrative twist for that. Like a lot of great story twists. It makes total sense when you look back, but it's shocking at the time because Neela's untrustworthiness is set up throughout, and she's betraying you and betraying everybody else. So you know she's a villain, but everything about the story structure is pointing at this other guy, and then she takes the crown. So I like that. That's very satisfying. It's a good twist on the structure of the first one, so they're not just repeating themselves. Yeah. So I appreciate that. That's fun.
Yeah, I like the escalation that it has with like it playing with the formula it sets up for itself, because episode 1 is played entirely straight with it. Yep. Episode 2, it plays it entirely straight until that ending cutscene where it's like, and then Rajan gets away. So you're not done with this guy yet. You actually have to do a second India level and deal with this stuff. So like this third episode itself is already like, okay, we're messing with things a little bit. We have to continue this. Then like in that, you have like the formula play with some more because like Neela betrays you. And that sets up the next thing where it's like, okay, it's just Bentley now. Bentley's the one doing the narration. Bentley's the one that has to rescue Sly. You're scared. It's the meme of SpongeBob being scared in a dark hallway because Prague is so fucking scary, man. I don't know what I'm doing.
It's true. It is. They picked the right place for it. And at that point, you're not even trying to get clockwork parts anymore. Like the story is totally skewed. You're just like, I just need my friends back. Then we can deal with whatever happens next. So they're twisting you around.
Yeah, because like the second Contessa level, you have to get the clockwork part, the eyes that hypnotize.
The hypno eyes.
Yeah, but episode 4 is entirely about, it's called Jailbreak. You are Bentley saving his friends, and the last mission is busting Murray out of jail after drugging and hypnotizing him until he drives himself insane that he gets strong enough to bust down the doors.
Again, like you do. Sometimes that's just your only way out of jail, I guess. But yeah, so they've taken you far afield, and they have the confidence to bring you back. Once you get to the Canada levels, where you're fighting a Jean Bisson, the logger who was thawed out of the ice after spending decades frozen. And then you are chasing down parts again. But then you get a twist where at the end of that whole section, he defeats you and takes all the clockwork parts that you've gathered and sells them to Arpeggio, the red herring final boss. So then you have to confront him to have any chance of getting any of it back. So it immediately sets you back on your heels.
Yeah. And Jean Bisson is a racist.
As all French Canadians are.
Yeah, I mean, sure, but French Canadians are racist against other French people. That's why Cajuns exist. No, it's actually because of the Acadian Wars. Don't write in. But
well said.
Yeah, no. Jean Bisson is racist against Bentley for being a turtle, and it like sets up this whole like conflict between Brain and Brawn.
That's true. He's like an evil Murray, basically.
Yeah, and also makes a weird like offhand racist comment about Indian people if you listen in on his conversations, because he said like, yeah, Rajan throws a great party for and then I'm not going to do the rest of it.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that. Well, because he's like, they lean into kind of him being like, Canadian equivalent of a redneck. So I'm sure that's probably what they're thinking in the dialogue there. But yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah, and there's like I'm not going to say that this game is going to win any awards for like racial sensitivity or anything like that, but it does.
Oh no, like everyone is a trope and an archetype, like you were saying. Some of it's dicier than others.
It's tropes and archetypes, but like the idea that like they care about these villains enough to give them distinct personalities, because you are actually going to have to deal with them as a force beyond like fighting them as a final boss. Certainly the first game is not going to win any awards for sensitivity in its depiction of Haitian voodoo.
No. That's really bad, and it's revealing that when they start bringing some of like the earlier villains back in later games, like they bring the Panda King from the first game back as like part of your team in Sly 3, like he gets a villain redemption arc, he gets a face turn in Sly 3, and already he, just from just calling him the Panda King and nothing else is kind of eye roll worthy. But yeah, the Haitian stuff in that first game, that's why they don't mention that again. That's not getting brought back in later games. That has aged very poorly.
Yeah, it's just weird that there is like textual racism in this series, but it's like on a species level and also on an ethnicity, nationality level.
Right, exactly. That's where they're stumbling into areas the world building has not prepared them for.
This nightmare world of Sly Cooper where there's double racism. Like there's two
I don't want to
classes.
live there at all. This is horrible.
Yeah.
You work out those kinks as you go. It's always interesting in animal-based worlds, how they handle animal-based fictional worlds, how they handle things like that. I remember in the Redwall books, which I loved as a kid, like the first one of those books. So those books, if you haven't read them, are all set among like, mice and otters and shrews and et cetera, and they have like big medieval wars. But the first one mentions humans like existing elsewhere, never again. And there's like 20 Redwall books. But after the first one, the author was like, I'm having a headache thinking about explaining how this world works if humans exist in it. So nope, this is a world where little mice have an abbey, and that's it. No humans.
Like, I want there to be, because there is like this stuff where it's like dealing with like the police and police as this like force that is inherently untrustworthy, because 2/3 of the cops that you deal with by name in this game are corrupt and evil.
Only Carmelita's the good one, and she keeps getting like kidnapped and tortured because of it.
Yeah, she gets kidnapped and tortured, and they try to hypnotize her to be a bad cop because she is
a better bad cop.
Yeah. But like she has like this unwavering faith in the law, and apparently there are there are comics that sort of elaborate on her relationship with the law to make her more sympathetic as somebody who is adversarial to Sly, because Sly is ultimately the hero and he's not a cop, but also he is also a guy who sings every lyric to the song Mrs. Officer by Lil Wayne.
Yeah, again, like their conversations, they flirt to a level of, if you're an adult, you're like, in a genuine R-rated thing, this would start creeping over into fetish territory. But safely here, it's not. But it is. You can see that Sly kind of gets off a little bit on being into a cop.
They give big boobs to Carmelita. I don't know if it's not a fetish thing.
Yeah, that's true. Maybe it's already dancing on the line. But he clearly enjoys being into a cop, which his friends start making fun of him for in the third one.
Yeah.
You got to save Carmelita, guys. She has the information, and you've got a thing for her.
Yeah.
So that's always fun.
Like, again, there's no like hard ideology besides, I guess, racism is real in this world and also strange, but there is power play in this a lot, and it does give backstories to these villains in ways that aren't unrealistic. It is definitely heightened because you are dealing with, that is an 8-foot tall Black Widow spider that we're following for 2 episodes.
A literal Black Widow, which is hysterical because she a bunch of her husbands died and she got all their money.
Like Rajan's backstory is his deep insecurity about acquiring his wealth through the drug dealing. They call it spice, but it's like he's dealing with like an illegal spice trade, and that's how he accumulates his wealth. And since he lives in India, he overrided the established class system.
A self-made man who grew up poor on the streets of Calcutta, he started his life of crime selling illegal spices in the black market, eventually growing his small outfit to a sizable operation and earning himself a seat in the prestigious Claw Gang. He's since crowned himself Lord of the Hills, and while he goes to great lengths to convince others of his royalty, it's mostly to convince himself. True to form, he's holding a lavish ball in his newly purchased ancestral palace. The reason? To show off his latest acquisition, the Clockwork Wings.
The line I love is his newly acquired ancestral palace, which is hysterical.
Yeah. Like his origin story is, okay, so these people have like a cursory knowledge of the Indian caste system that is oppressive, but like it doesn't do that to like make a statement on it, just to like explain like the backstory of this character we're dealing with while we do India for 2 episodes. And also like, yeah, the corrupt police officer who has an asylum that she uses to reform criminals by hypnotizing them and
then taking
them.
all their money. Yeah, which is amazing. Yeah, and you can the kind of the Rajan setup is good impetus for them having 2 levels, like you were saying earlier, because you get the surface, the appeal of Rajan, how he wants to be known with his beautiful palace and the party he's throwing, and then you have to follow him back to his actual lair, this crumbling temple in the jungle where everything is much darker and everything's falling apart. And it's like, all right, so here's where we're seeing the harsh realities of making your way in this drug trade that don't show up at the nice palace where we were just dancing to the music earlier. But it's all done organically, all done in service of level design and drawing you into the story. The stuff about the cops is just a great kind of cheeky thief perspective because you're Sly, so of course you think of authority as bad. And the same thing with the Ocean's movies don't have anything, I think, serious to say about corruption or power or wealth. But of course, from the perspective of a character like Danny Ocean, the guys who run the casinos are just the ones telling you to sit straight in class, and you gotta rub their noses and how easily you can defeat them. That's why Sly leaves his little signature behind, his little logo to let you know he's been there.
Yeah, I mean, Soderbergh does have an ideology behind his work if you watch his filmography, but the Ocean's ones are the most mainstream, acceptable, palatable version of that, right? Like
that's a good way of putting it, because he's made directly, rawly political movies, and you can see the Ocean's movies are a sublimation of that. So that's actually a perfect comparison.
Yeah, but Shay Part 2 isn't making $500 million at the box office the way that the Ocean's movies are, right?
Yep.
They're not making a Shay spinoff with Sandra Bullock.
Imagined.
The Contessa episode also deals with like, here is like the place where she quote unquote reforms her criminals, which is hypnotizing them to telling the locations of their secret treasure stash and then stealing it for herself, thus accumulating more wealth that she can use for her evil ends. But like the second episode is like, all right, here's my other reform. What is it? Like what did they say? Re-education center.
My backup one.
Yeah. While she has a very public war with Interpol after she's been caught being, because she was like one of the heads at Interpol, but then it's like, allegedly, I'm corrupt now, so I'm going to have like a secret, very public war while I try and hypnotize this good cop to be the fall guy for me.
All translated into that cartoon language, so it's like tanks like literally across the street. Like
Yeah.
going across a bridge, and there were some tanks doing like figure eights around a police station. That's Interpol.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. It's
the,
goofy.
It's the perfect way. Yeah, exactly. It's the perfect way to translate those kind of logistics into this tone. Same thing with kind of the environmental stuff when you get to the Canadian sections.
Yeah, it's definitely better than like Zootopia's approach of like, actually let's reinforce prejudiced ideas, but like it is not trying to meaningfully grapple with prejudice the way something, say, Zootopia does. It just doesn't end up like slipping over itself trying to just tell a story about thieves.
And we keep coming back to pulp. That's the advantage of pulp, is that has that paradoxical quality of the farther it gets away from the reality of its subject, it can actually be better at dealing with it.
Yeah, you could just like have the catharsis of like sticking it to the man. Art can just be a vulgar picture of a guy you don't like. You don't actually have to like make a statement, because your metaphor will get muddied if you lean too hard on it.
Exactly. You don't step outside your bounds there.
Mm-hmm. What do you wish this game did better? Because I have some notes.
I guess really just the voice acting for me sometimes does fall short. That was the most noticeable aspect for me upon playing it again, is sometimes there's a couple obvious howlers like I mentioned, but sometimes they lean a little too heavily on cringeworthy accents. It doesn't always line up exactly with character movement, so it feels a little off. So that definitely, I noticed that probably more than I noticed it as a kid. What about you?
So this game, it came out in 2004, and that's where a lot of my critiques kind of land. You cannot skip any cutscenes no matter how many times you've played the game.
Yep.
The threshold for getting the optional, but often useful power-ups are pretty high. The ones that you need to purchase ultimately is like the alarm clock and the paraglider. And that glider is so fun and enjoyable, and I like it a lot. So of course I'm going to prioritize that. And the alarm clock is very useful for when you just do not want to wait for a guard to do something and you can just lure them away. So
sure.
The most important stuff ends up being the least expensive. But part of me wishes I could just have a little New Game Plus where I could see how quickly I could move through the game if I could skip cutscenes and just keep the power-ups from one playthrough to the next instead of grind, because you are expected to grind if you want to actually get the power-ups that are just silly and fun. If you get all the Bentley power-ups, he is comically overpowered and silly and fun.
It's true. You can start stealing health from the guards and pausing time, and you can take over.
He has a Looney Tunes run button that lets him like dart away very quickly.
The sound it makes is so funny.
Yeah.
And you need that because he's so, the guards can kill him easily. So of course the first Bentley power-up you need is run really fast in the other direction.
But because they stagger power-ups per episode, it doesn't feel like you get a lot of meaningful time with the silliest stuff, and you cannot replay missions after you've completed them. That is the strength of the game, is like how narratively driven its story is and how it like
the trade-off there. Yeah.
Every mission does feed into the story because you're building towards the heist of the episode or the jailbreak of the episode or what have you. But the consequence of that is you cannot go back and replay individual missions or even reset the world on the same save file. You have to, if you want to do something from Prague, you have to play episodes 1, 2, and 3 to get there.
Yep.
So those are my big... Also, I just don't care for episode 3 as an overworld. It's too much green, and I got lost a lot. And especially
that is probably the worst level design in the game.
Yeah, the verticality of it makes it so that Bentley and Murray are just not fun to play in it.
That's also the one where, the restrictions on that are the hardest. The other levels, like I was saying earlier, I think they do a pretty good job of balancing it out. So Bentley and Murray can still have areas they can access, and it feels true to them. But number 3, the second India level, is all Sly all the time, pretty much.
Yeah, I mean, like, it's the only way I can stay sane because, one, orienting yourself, like, there is a central tower that you can use to sort of, like, say, okay, where am I? Okay, I have to go over this way. But everything is vines, so that's how Sly gets around. And if you don't have a vine, you have to just sort of navigate this one set path, and you're going to have to walk most of that path to get to where you are, especially at the end. And Bentley doesn't have the power-ups that feel really fun to use yet.
It's too early, maybe. Like, when you get later Bentley and Murray abilities, they would be able to handle it better.
Yeah. So episode 3, I just do not care for map-wise. And I also found on this playthrough that the missions feel super padded for time. I should never have to do 6 of anything in my life.
That's fair.
Yeah, there's just a lot of things where it's like, we need to get 6 of these things, Sly. And it's like, 6? Rule of 3, buddy. Let's do 3. Everything feels doubled or like 150% of what it should be.
They're a little drunk on power. Mm-hmm.
I have to photograph 9 ghosts. 9 ghosts.
I feel like 1 would do the job.
There are 7 Dragon Balls.
1 ghost would scare me.
Yeah. Yeah, you have to escalate the war with the police and Contessa by putting ghosts into the police station and blaming
Which
it on...
Which is amazing as a premise. But yeah, too much of a good thing there.
What I love about episode 4 and 5 as like a setup knockdown is like the psychoanalytical language that the Contessa uses. And then episode 5, it's like, by the way, there are ghosts and dark magic. And that's what the Contessa's really doing. She's just couching it in this psychoanalytic talk. So
yeah,
it's like,
that's an amazing combination.
All these like jokes in episode 4 about id, ego, and super ego. And then like episode 5 is like, she's been using dark magic the entire time.
And we have werewolves and gargoyles. It's amazing.
Yeah. Episode 5, for example, like there you have to photograph 9 ghosts, and then immediately after that I did a mission with Bentley where he had to go to 4 different crypts to collect it's called Bad Mojo, the dark magic.
It's much as I love that, the tone of that stuff, it is definitely overkill.
Yeah, that, and like I could have used some subtitles in the I was going to call them codec calls because of Metal Gear.
Yeah.
I could have done with some subtitles sometimes, but that's just
fair.
Me being cranky. And those are my issues. I don't think I really have like I said, it's a game that's greater than the sum of its parts. So like the minor pacing weaknesses and everything, I feel work in the whole piece of it. So I think we've covered everything I want to say about this game. Do you think you're good on your end too?
Absolutely.
All right. In that case, let's move on and talk about yourself once again, Emmett.
Oh, my favorite subject.
I wanted to spend some time talking about A Song of Ice and Fire, but we got to wrap the episode up today. We can circle back on A Song of Ice and Fire. Maybe I'll do a bonus with you one day where we can talk about the failure of people to make a truly great game. Well, hold on. There's an interesting history behind that with like Crusader Kings. I don't want to get into it right now.
That's true. Well, we'll get into that. That's perfect.
Tabling that, we'll have a bonus conversation one day about A Song of Ice and Fire.
Sounds good. I'm there.
Yeah. Thank you for taking the time to be on my show to talk about a game
of course.
I have been so happy to revisit.
Same here.
Before we end the episode, please promote the hell out of yourself.
Of course. Well, thanks again for having me on. I was really looking forward to this. It was a blast to replay these games and so much fun to talk about them. So, yes, my name's Emmett, also known as Poor Quentin. I'm one of the hosts on the NotACast podcasts with my friend Manu, who's been on the show before, friend of the pod Manu. So we're going through the books, the Song of Ice and Fire books, the books that inspired Game of Thrones. We've been going back through them for quite a while now, just chapter by chapter, plowing ahead through the books in the reading order, unlike Girls Gone Canon, who go through the books character by character, just a different way of doing things. So we're currently in the midst of A Feast for Crows, book 4. Lots of great stuff in there with Cersei, Jaime, Brienne, the Ironborn hosting their King's Moot, everything going wrong in Dorne. We're having a great time. So you can check us out on Podbean, on Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. That's NotACast, NotACast, the NotACast podcast. You can also check out our Patreon at patreon.com/NotACast, ASOIAF. That's ASOIAF for Song of Ice and Fire, where patrons get benefits, including early access to our regular episodes, as well as exclusive episodes every 4 weeks. Our patrons vote in a poll every 4 weeks on a topic for the exclusive episode. So come check out the Patreon, come vote in the poll, and then you can listen to our exclusive episodes every 4 weeks. You can find us on Twitter and on Blue Sky at NotACast, ASOIAF. And you can find me at Poor Quentin.
Definitely check all this stuff out. Emmett, thank you again for taking the time to be on this podcast.
My pleasure.
It's wonderful to have you. Hope I can have you back again soon.
I'd love that.
Yeah, me too.
Thanks for busting me out.
Oh, well, you know the old saying, if you can't count on a friend to bust you out of jail, what kind of a friend are they?
Truer words were never said, wizard.
One thing I did want to mention at the very end here, because we didn't get to it, and I do think it is a core part of the appeal of this game and why it sticks in the minds of people who grew up playing it, is that, especially for an E-rated platform game, it has a fairly dark kind of Empire Strikes Back ending where it isn't all optimistic and hopeful at the end. Like, it has that cheeky note it ends on with Sly escaping from the clutches of Officer Carmelita, but before that, defeating Clockla, the kind of clockwork Neela hybrid fusion that you fight at the end, it comes at the cost of Bentley, Sly's best friend, being permanently disabled. He's paralyzed from the waist down, and Murray is traumatized by the whole experience. And Sly has this realization that his friends put themselves in mortal danger this entire time to preserve his legacy.
They'd taken some bruises through all of this, but I was surprised, shocked really, to see them leave their gear behind as they walked away. Their wounds were deeper than I'd imagined. Those guys were hurting.
That's just a heavy ending to deal with. The idea that, like, the thing you were pursuing was reckless and it did put your very close friends in danger. And this is in a period of time where the sequel would come out just a year later, so you're not left hanging on that ending for years and years, unlike the fans of Sly Cooper today who have not gotten the cliffhanger they were left off on resolved for more than a decade now. But for just a moment, it was like, what is this going to be like next? I do think that Sly 3 actually does handle disability in a very interesting way, where a character who was not disabled in Sly 2, you do now play as in a wheelchair in Sly 3. And the way that changes interaction and redefines the character and their arc, I think is actually quite good. It's one of the more interesting representations of disability in video games, because it is a person who's not starting with a disability, and the circumstances throughout the series lead to the disability, and how that changes how you play as the character, and the way that it isn't negative, isn't depriving the player of any mechanical features. It just changes how the character is played. I think it's quite good. I think it's one of the better representations of disability in the medium. But that's going into a different place. But I would love to, in the future, be able to talk about this in further detail. But we're on a time limit, and we can have this conversation at a later time. So let's go ahead and wrap up this episode. One thing I like to do after every episode is to give some recommendations based on our discussion. So let me leave you today with a few recommendations. All of the movies, which is fitting for something so influenced by the cinematic medium. The first one I want to recommend is maybe the most obvious one. It is the Wes Anderson film, Fantastic Mr. Fox. Fantastic Mr. Fox is a Wes Anderson stop-motion animated film based on the book by Roald Dahl. It follows Fox going through a midlife crisis, reverting back to his thieving days of his youth to try and recapture some of it and to build a better life for his family. It's a lot of fun. It's wonderfully animated. And if you like animals doing some thieving, I can't imagine a fan of Sly Cooper that wouldn't enjoy this movie. Wes Anderson once said at a Q&A that he's an enormous fan of the films of Michael Mann, and that he spent his entire career remaking Heat and nobody's noticed. And I find that very illuminating when you look at his entire career, especially when you look at the very beginning of it with his debut feature, Bottle Rocket, which is a criminally overlooked film in Wes's filmography, and another one of my recommendations today. You have probably seen Fantastic Mr. Fox, or you're at least aware of Fantastic Mr. Fox. Bottle Rocket is more overlooked, and it's maybe the least Wes Anderson-y of Wes Anderson's films. You can definitely see him still try and figure a lot of things out, and it's a very scrappy film with a lot of scrappy energy. It stars the film stars, 3 of Wes Anderson's real-life friends, including pre-fame Luke and Owen Wilson, as 3 friends just trying to pull off a heist. James Caan, also in the film. That's where the Michael Mann-y nature of Wes's filmography may come in there. James Caan starred in an early Michael Mann film called Thief, which you should also check out. But I do think Bottle Rocket appeals more to the average Sly fan than Thief would, because Bottle Rocket is about 3 goofy friends from childhood just trying to pull off heists together. It's like, especially when one of them feels like it has become like part of their life's mission and the danger it puts his friends in. So check out Bottle Rocket. I think it would really resonate if you really like the plot of, if you really like the story of Sly 2. It's a criminally overlooked film. And hey, speaking of criminally overlooked heist-themed debut features that have been overshadowed by the filmmaker's later work, might I recommend Lupin III, The Castle of Cagliostro, the first feature film directed by a little filmmaker called Hayao Miyazaki, who before this had previously co-directed episodes of the Lupin III anime. You don't need to watch any of the Lupin media to appreciate this film. You should, but you don't need to. It totally stands on its own. It is a completely standalone story that doesn't really require any context. The film begins with Master Thief and Womanizer Lupin having successfully pulled off a casino heist, only to discover that the bills are a counterfeit of an exceptionally high quality. Curious, he and his associates Jigen track its source to a count who intends to recover an ancient treasure of Cagliostro by marrying the country's princess against her will. Shenanigans ensue. Really incredible film, wildly overlooked in comparison to Miyazaki's other films because this is pre-Ghibli. Lupin and Sly are both gentlemen thieves who are horny as hell, and also his 2 friends are there. The dynamic between Lupin and his pursuer, Inspector Zenigata, is not unlike Sly and Carmelita's, although the latter is slightly hornier than the former. Also worth mentioning because both this film and the first level of Sly 2 is centered around stopping a counterfeit operation. It's had an undeniable influence on Sly Cooper, if not directly, then at least indirectly, because Castle of Cagliostro was tremendously influential on the medium of animation, including Batman the Animated Series, which references the Clock Tower set piece in the first Clock King episode. So, canonical film, watch Castle of Cagliostro, thank me later. One more recommendation, another overlooked heist film from a filmmaker that I love. I'm talking about the 1998 crime comedy romance directed by Steven Soderbergh, Out of Sight, which stars George Clooney and Jennifer Lopez. The dynamic between George Clooney and Lopez is very similar to Sly and Carmelita's. I think that Sly is just very George Clooney coded in general, which is part of why I recommended Fantastic Mr. Fox for the Clooney of it all. Check out Out of Sight. It's just good cinema. I love Don Cheadle. Everybody loves Don Cheadle, but I think we all could just use a little bit more Cheadle in our life. And you could use some more Out of Sight. So put Out of Sight in your line of sight and watch it as soon as possible. And once again, thank me later. Those are all the recommendations I have for you today. Thank you once again to Emmett for being such a wonderful guest. And thank you so much for listening to this episode of Select and Start. Once again, I am your host, editor, and promoter, Keifer. If you enjoyed this episode, please give the show a positive review wherever you're listening to this. Engagement helps the show, and your feedback will improve it. And if you want to get more engaged, please give the show a follow on Blue Sky at Select and Start. If you have thoughts about Sly 2, Band of Thieves, or any other games we've discussed, send a DM or leave a comment, and I will gladly read it on the show. You can also support the show on Patreon. If you pledge at least $1 a month, you will get early access to new episodes, as well as extended episodes with exclusive content. That's on patreon.com/Keifer's Corner. Any amount helps, but for just $1 a month, you do get some extra goodies. You can find a link to that and the rest of my projects in the description of this episode. Select and Start is part of the Moonshot Network, which is supported by its own Patreon. Find out more on moonshotpods.com and check out the other wonderful shows on this network. The art for the show is made by my best friend, Avery Ott. You can follow him on social media with the handle at AveryRobinOtt. That's AVRY, Robin OTT. The show's theme song was composed by Mike Petrie, who has a new video game coming out on March 16th, 2026 called Murder at the Birch Tree Theater, a murder mystery whodunit set in a small community theater. I'm very excited to check it out, and please check it out yourself. Please check out my description so you can get some links to that, Avery's work, Emmett's work, and the rest of Mike's work. All right, I think that's it. I might be big and not as smart as the other guys, but one thing I'm not is weak.
Oh, well, you know the old saying, if you can't count on a friend to bust you out of jail, what kind of a friend are they?